Hello, 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 and welcome to Project Possible, a podcast with me, Rich Lee, where I talk to incredible people about who they are and why they are who they are. My hope is we all want to feel happier, healthier, more fulfilled. My hope is that through these conversations, we get there. We understand ourselves better, we understand the guests better, and we're motivated by them, inspired by them. We're looking at the possibilities and thinking, okay, well, if I'm here, where do I want to be and how do I get there? If this person has proved that it's possible, then it might not be today, next week, next month, but how do I get to where I want to be? Knowing, and that's the whole thing of being a possibilist, is you know that it's possible, it's just how and what challenges you're going to have to face. Because being ever optimistic is wonderful, but kind of when you got the blinkers on a little bit, that's not going to necessarily help. And today's guest, Chef Jon Watts, is a perfect example of this. Jon was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison when he was just 18 for an incident that we do talk about to some extent. And Jon is a million miles from that person today. He said he was a million miles from that person the same day, the very same day, the next day of the incident. Now, Jon is a best-selling recipe book author. He's Sunday Times bestseller multiple times over. His new book, Speedy Comfort, is absolutely fantastic. I think we must have made half a dozen things from it already, including some very good cookies. Jon is a good example of what accountability looks like. When somebody says, do you know what, this isn't the path I want to walk. And he was already some way down that path. We talk about prison. We talk about what it was like for him. I talk about prison from my side, having not been in, but with family members that have been, so as a visitor and those feelings and what that does to you, for you. And I just think it's a very powerful, positive conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. I think you'll be moved by it. I certainly was. So thank you, as ever, for all your support, all your loveliness. I really appreciate it. We started charting again each episode, which is wonderful. The more people we get this to, the more people we can hopefully inspire and entertain and thank you for being a possibilist. So all that remains to be said is, without further ado, I bring to you my chat with the brilliant, the talented Chef Jon Watts. Enjoy.
So I'm a chef and I do a little bit of catering, but predominantly now I'm writing cookbooks and I do social media stuff. So I've just released my third cookbook, my second cookbook through a real publisher.
And how's it going?
It's going really well. So this one is Sunday Times bestseller as we speak, second week in a row. So it can't be happier.
No small feat. Yeah.
No small feat, no.
Absolutely not. So we're talking an awful lot of copies shifted. Yeah. And is it, obviously it's Bloomsbury, the publisher, big publisher. Have you got that whole machine behind you or is it a lot on you?
Bloomsbury's a great machine. So this is my third cookbook. I loved the cookbook journey, actually, and obviously we're going to go into my whole journey from the beginning and throughout. For me, the cookbook journey is such a big part and like really personal as well. So the first cookbook I did, really long story, but I really wanted to get this book out. All the publishers were saying no, and basically thought, you know what, I'm just going to write my own cookbook. I'm not going to send a proposal. I'm just going to write the entire thing. Then I'll go to publishers. In that time, this small publisher, came to me and said, if you sell 500 copies, we will fund it. It's the type of publisher where if you're a restaurant and you want to write your own cookbook and then sell it in your restaurant, you'd pay them, they'd publish it, you'd sell it. So I thought 500 copies is easy. And then, little did I know, in that weekend, where I put it out on social media, I did sell 1,000 copies. It was a bank holiday. So by the time I found out on the Tuesday, I was like, oh, well, sold 1,000. They're going to fund it. Book goes ahead. That book ended up selling an incredible amount, more than I like. In hindsight now, having 2 other books and seeing all the other book sales, it sold an incredible amount. But to give you numbers, it sold 13,000 copies in the first weekend, which is it's almost Jamie Oliver numbers.
That's massive.
I didn't realise to this day, like at that time, I was like, I had no idea how huge that was. So naturally, 10 days after that came out, I was signed to Bloomsbury, which was a dream come true because...
Talk to me about that process. Talk to me about how did they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously I'd spent... The whole journey for me, it was, well, years, really, I would say.
Well, what's that saying? It's, it takes years to be an overnight success.
Yeah, exactly. And that first book, What's Cooking, had come out and done so well. And, yeah, I got this message in my DMs from Bloomsbury. And... for me, it was just such a big journey because all that work that had gone into getting it out, I'd basically had to do all of it myself, all the PR, all the marketing. I'm on social media pushing it. It sells so many. And yeah, so then be contacted by Bloomsbury to say, hey, we want to publish a book with you. It was a dream, like a real dream come true. I'd put it as, obviously as I go on through my journey, as moments that sort of what's the word, like a big moment.
Big sliding doors moment where something, you're like, oh God, something massive's changed.
Bloomsbury signing me for that book was huge to me. Like
signing for the biggest football club, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's literally that.
That's how it felt. So suddenly there, like you just mentioned, is that a big machine behind you? And yeah, absolutely. It went from me doing everything to having a whole team. When it comes to the shooting the photos, with the first book, it was me in an Airbnb in Sheffield. I was ordering all the foods. I was there for about 10 days maybe. The food would come at night. I'd be prepping it, sleep a couple of hours. The photographer would come in. He'd never photographed a cookery book before. I'm just throwing everything over to him. He'll photograph it. It goes in the book, and that's it. Whereas with Bloomsbury, there's a whole team. Like when it comes to the photo shoot, there's a food stylist, her assistants. There's like a photographer, his assistant. There's somebody just doing props, deciding which knife and fork is going on the what's it called, on the
table.
Yeah, on the table. So it's and then you've got the marketing, the publicity, and the editorial, and the editor. Like in the first book, there was a girl who did help me out, and she'd just come out of university, and she just sort of made sure it was the spelling and the correct grammar. Yeah. Whereas with this one, I will have a one-on-one with this editor who is going through what I'm saying and then elevating it. It just makes it sound so much better. So yeah, it's a completely different ball game. So that was last year. Speedy Weeknight Meals came out, was the instant #1 bestseller, which was my big goal because they knew that as well. Because with What's Cooking, which was the first one, as I said, it sold 13,000 copies. That would have easily put it at #1 in the Sunday Times bestseller list. But because it was it's a small private company, the sales aren't being registered through Nielsen, Massey's, Bookscan. Basically, every time you buy a book in a shop or from Amazon or something, it will register as a sale. None of the books registered as sales. And they just went through. I mean, it's good if you want to make money because you're keeping a lot more of the profit. But
can you remember what you were keeping? Profit
from the book?
Yeah, from What's Cooking?
From the first one, it was 25%.
Which to anybody listening sounds like you're being robbed, right? But I've written a book.
Yeah.
And the percentages are terrible. For the author, that's bloody brilliant. 25% is, you're walking away gangbusters.
Yeah, and considering it's not, you're actually buying from the publisher, and that's why it's not hitting that number. It's a funny one because it was very profitable for me, that book. But I wanted it to hit those heights. I've never been like money focused. Obviously, I like money as much as anybody does. But for me, I wanted to get the book out there, and I wanted, to hit those levels. I wanted it to be Sunday Times bestseller. I wanted.
Well, again, nobody starts out to play in Sunday League for the rest of their life, right? So, there you go. It's you wanted those upper echelons. You wanted to reach it. So, what did it feel like when that DM dropped in your inbox
from Bloomsbury?
From Bloomsbury, yeah.
If I felt like I was seen. I always say to myself, I always sort of imagine like you try and achieve things or you try and get somewhere and it feels like nobody's listening a lot of the time. So I've always sort of told myself, beat your drum as loud as until they can't hear you. That's beat the drum so loud they can't ignore you. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So I've always sort of thought of that, like keep beating my drum, make it so loud that they can't ignore you. And that's how it felt. It felt like I've done that book. I put so much energy into it, so much hard work. It did pay off. Luckily, when I look back, I'm like, if little things didn't happen, it would. So basically, I got on this morning and did a recipe. I did the Marry Me Chicken, which basically went viral. Without that book probably wouldn't have sold loads. And then
the process of how you got on this morning is very fascinating, isn't it? We will come back to that. I always do this. I sometimes do this thing where I'm like, we'll come back to it, and then we never do. We have to come back to this morning and how you got onto that and the mood board. And,
the mood board.
Of course, and all of these things. But to get to that, we have to get to the fact that your life hasn't been a straight line. Nobody's life is a straight line from, hey, I was a kid that loved cooking and then I went to culinary school and then I got a great job and then I did this, and it's not been that for you. And the reason that I got in touch is because it's an incredibly inspiring story from my perspective, from my background, from the people I had around me. Your story is one of resilience and overcoming adversity, but also accountability, and really you've changed your future. You've changed yours, your children's, their children's future, and that's what you've done by choices you've made. So let's go back to young Jon Watts. Where did you grow up?
I grew up near Oxford.
Okay, and what was that like? What kind of family?
Like
what kind of upbringing are we talking? Is it a middle class upbringing? Is it?
I don't know what you class it as. Both my parents worked. So my dad, I didn't really know what he did.
Was he a spy?
No, nothing like that. It's funny because I did this newspaper article last year, and the guy, he was going into my childhood and stuff, and he'd asked what my parents do now. He's talking about, and I said, my daddy works in like some sort of laboratory or something. So he's like, oh, is he a scientist? I was like, no, he's not a scientist. And then he put it down in the paper as Jon Watts' dad, lab assistant, and my dad read it and he was like, what are you doing? I'm not a lab assistant. And his like friends at work were laughing at him and stuff. Even then, he probably told me what he did. I don't even know. Some sort of technician. And it sounds quite interesting. They're doing something with lasers, and he's... Okay. I don't know. He enjoys it, I think.
Yeah.
As we were kids, I think he worked like in an engineering company. Right.
And you're one of five?
One of five, yeah.
Like myself. How was that? You're the second eldest?
I'm the second oldest.
Same as me.
Oh, is it right?
Yeah.
So my older brother is a different dad. So then my mum had him young, and then my dad had come in, and then my dad's had the rest of us four.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And were you good at school?
What are we talking? Primary school or
primary school? Let's go. Yeah, let's go. So primary. I mean, you went to, and just to lead you for a second, you went to a slightly different school to most kids. How do you describe that school?
So both my parents, I would describe as having troubled backgrounds, troubled upbringings, and I think both of them had. I'm not the biggest fan of religion and churches and things, and I think it's from my experiences, and I think they prey on people and sometimes, I don't want to say take advantage, but maybe it's a bit of that. And they saw...
That wouldn't be the most controversial thing about religion that's been said while talking to me. The actor Brian Cox said the Bible's the worst book ever written while just talking to me, and that made headlines everywhere. So you don't have to worry about saying, maybe the church takes advantage of people. They do. What are missions about? Why do they go out to places and say, we'll give you this well, we'll give you these things.
It's always...
here's a book.
Well, it's always vulnerable people, isn't it? And I know my mum in particular, she was in a very vulnerable state, and I don't really want to air her stuff. But yeah, I think she was in a very vulnerable state as a woman in her early 20s, and she goes to this church and she finds religion, and that's where she meets my dad, who's also gone there, and he's often struggled with parts of his life, and then they've met, and then as part of that church they went to, I don't ever know how to describe that church, because it's not a church building. They used to just meet up in a hall, and people would say, "Oh, was it Jehovah's Witnesses? Was it Book of Mormons, whatever it is?" And I'm always like, I don't even know what it was, to be honest with you.
It was denominationally what it was.
Yeah.
So is it Protestant, Catholic?
Yeah, I think Protestant, and they'd meet up in these halls, and there was all over Oxfordshire they'd have it, and then you'd turn up and it would be all singing, and the funny thing for me was always the tongues. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes, I have. They did all of that. Is it uvelation?
Yeah, they're like and
keep going.
Well, I
know this one. This is a good song.
I used to feel bad because I couldn't do it. I was like, and people would they'd be holding their hands up, and I don't want to offend anyone who's religious, but they'd be holding their hands up and they'll fall to the floor, and I used to look at it and be like, what's going on? And
how old were you? So I mean, presumably as soon as your earliest memories are in and around the church.
Yeah, so that would have been from when I was, I think, as my entire existence, from when I was a baby. I think they were already in that. And then there was this school. So for all those churches around Oxfordshire, there was a school that they had built where the teachers were the parents of the kids and stuff like that, which is why I call it a cult. Well, if you look at the definition of cult, actually, it definitely was. And it's just funny because then you're in that bubble, like where I was living, you'd be associating with the people who go to that church, and then you'd go to the school and everyone's a part of that, and you couldn't really question things. And I've always been a curious person and inquisitive. I was as a child. Like I had to take this 45-minute bus to this school, and I'd always look out the window and be like wondering about God, like where is God? Like, why am I being told to do this at this, and told where is he? Like, why can't I see it? Why can't I feel it? And that kind of thing.
Is it strict? What kind of school are we talking?
I'd say very strict in the biblical sense.
Right.
Like God would be brought up in every lesson, whether it be maths, English, somehow it would get brought up. Like that. Do you know, the good thing I would say about that school is I do think beyond that, the education part was actually okay. And I left that school halfway through year 7, and I went to the mainstream school. And I do think that, because even though I didn't do very well at school, I think my intelligence is kind of all right. And I think that comes from that base that I got in that early school.
And did all your siblings go to this school as well?
Yeah, they did. So it went all the way through to year 11. My older brother went all the way through.
So from primary all the way up through.
Primary all the way to
which is
16.
Atypical.
What's
atypical? You don't usually see that.
Yeah. That's all I knew, so I thought that was normal. So yeah, he went all the way through to that. Then I went to halfway through year 7. Then my sister, and then the youngest one never went there. I always think it's quite funny because I say this to them as well. I think we're the longer we stayed in the school, the more like effed up we are now.
Right, so
I'd say we go in order, yeah.
Your older brother, when
he won't listen to this, so I can say what I want about him.
He went all the way through.
He went all the way through, and you can tell.
Oh, right, okay. So, why did you leave in year 7?
I left in year 7 because I was just being a little bit of a nuisance, and I got called to the headmaster's office. This is kind of what I remember, and then bits of what I've been told as well. It's kind of a big blur in my memory. And the headmaster come and yanked me by my hair and pulled me in, and I think for whatever reason I'd gone home and told my parents that, and then they'd pulled us out. I think it must have been like a final straw.
Right. Because was it all otherwise quite like punishment was a part of the
punishment?
Day-to-day?
Yes, because it was class. It wasn't the private school in the sense that we know private schools, but it was classed as private because it was, there's people.
An organised, self-organised school, right?
Yeah, and what was it called? Corporal punishment?
Corporal punishment.
Corporal, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So the cane was outlawed in like the 80s or something. But in private schools, I think it was mid-90s. So I was still there in the earlier years where it wasn't the cane, but they had a table tennis bat. So you'd have to go in a room if you're naughty, you put your hands out and they'll smash you on your hands. And I used to think, I didn't used to think, I think now, how can you, as an adult, hit somebody with a bat, hit a child with a bat?
A literal child, a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid.
Yeah, I know times were different, but
It's no excuse, is it? Really?
yeah, I still
it's
think
still
I-
no
I
excuse.
could-
Like what kind of person? You know, they always say the worst kind of person's the guard at Auschwitz that enjoyed his job, right? It's like, not only is it awful to do that job, but
Yeah.
to do that job and still administer that and be like, yeah, well, I'm making that kid a better person. No, you're not. You're fucking them up for life.
Yeah.
That's hitting children with bats.
Yeah,
Like,
I
this-
think it does affect.
Of course
it
it
does
does.
affect you. Yeah.
And then add to that, and you said that you won't offend. I'll take a step forward and say, like where the fact that you don't know anything outside of your religion because your mates and their parents and everybody around you,
Yeah.
that's your bubble, as you said.
Yeah.
So add these things together, and I don't know how they think that's going to set children up to be. What do you do post school then? What, you just stay in that religious bubble? What, like, is that the hope?
From what I've seen from that school and that environment, is people either stay in it forever and they bring up their families in it and they're in that bubble, or they leave it, and I think they're often not in a very good way. It's kind of similar to have you ever watched the Louis Theroux documentaries? I love them. I love them
He's an inspiration for me, an enormous inspiration. Doing he talks about curiosity. I'm endlessly curious. That man's another level of curious.
Yeah.
And the things he'll put himself through,
Yeah.
just to
the way he
experience.
interviews
He's
is
amazing.
so good, yeah. And he did the one on the Westboro Baptist Church. He's done a number of them now. Yeah. But when you see those kids that have gone through it and they're brainwashed, and then he sees them when they come out and they're normal, but you can tell that there's like something left on them. I think it's very much
That excommunication,
it's
isn't
very
it? They don't just let you leave. Like you're shunned.
That's what it was like with my parents. Like, I remember they moved into our house that I grew up with in most of my life, and they had so many people there helping, and that's the nice part. I remember 50 people being in that house and stripping wallpaper and painting, and it's good in that sense because they have a community. But as soon as you leave that community, that's it, you've left. And I remember being looked down on by the kids I knew that went to that school and went to that church. And as soon as we left, because when I left that school, we all were all pulled out, all my siblings. Around that time, my parents stopped going to the church as well. And I remember the kids are saying like, oh, God wouldn't tell you to leave. I remember saying that to the kids. They were like, why are you leaving? I was like, oh, my parents said that God told them they need to leave. They were like, God would never tell you to leave this school, and we're going to hell and that sort of thing. And it was very much like, oh my God. Couldn't even say that when I was at this
Of course not. Right. But it is that Scientology, Westboro Baptist Church. Though I mean, I've got a few friends from the that Mormon kind of side of things. They and their families. You're kind of shunned. You are shunned. If you don't fully agree to be fully in, and you can't have one foot. You have to have both feet in. That's kind of the way it was. So, what was it like for you then to go to a state school?
Yeah, it definitely was weird. The school that I was going to was, you'd have 1 year. 1 year was one class. So your year 7 would be 25 pupils, maybe 20. And that was it. 1 year 7, 1 year 8. I go to this school and it was across 2 sites, and there's in each 5 year 7s there, 5 year 7s there. So there's probably 300 kids in each year. And so it was huge. Like 1 year was bigger than my whole school before. So it's quite overwhelming in that sense. But for me, I think I had a couple of friends that I'd known locally. So
you were allowed to have friends that were outside of the church?
Yeah. I had friends like around our street and stuff. So they went to that school, and then I had a cousin who also was in my same year, and he went to that school as well. So that was good. I still knew people. So it wasn't like I was going in fresh and had to meet new people. But I did have to meet new people. But yeah, I just found it very overwhelming, but also I'd say exciting. I was very happy to move to that school because I saw my friends and I wanted to be normal. I think by that point, I was already curious enough to go, I don't think I believe in that, which is quite crazy, really, given
that's all you've been fed and the pressure to do that. Did you feel like an outcast at the new school?
Yeah, I think I feel like an outcast even now. It's how I.
Did you feel like an outcast at presumably at the religious school as well? If you're questioning your faith and things like that, you're on the fringes of that, and then you move to this other school, you're on the fringes of that. Yeah. That's a lot for an 11-year-old boy to kind of take on.
It is, but I think maybe I'm thinking out loud now, but maybe that's why I'm used to it, and that's why I kind of use it as a strength, I guess. I think even now in the cookbook world, I feel like an outcast compared to everyone else doing that. But I suppose that's where you find your own identity, and then you've got to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's, as I touched on, I say this a lot. There not being a straight line to success is a wonderful thing. The fact that you don't always have to go this pre-written route, and I hope that people that listen to and watch this, yours but other people's as well, go, okay, well, that person, like, I interviewed a clown, was one of the like quite a famous clown the other week, and his route into clowning was incredible. It's like because he went, yeah, I think I want to do that. It's like, well, how do you become a clown? Well, this is pre-internet. I don't know. So, he had to find his way into it. And I just think, the old trope of just running away to the circus. It's like, yes, but how? And, what do you do? And so I think it's endlessly interesting for people that maybe don't fit a perfect mold. I don't think many people fit that typical traditional school to uni to work mold anyway. But people that don't fit that go, okay, well, what about me? How do I get to that? Well, we've got to work it out. It's just, it doesn't just fall into your lap. So were you a good student then? You said you were quite bright. Were you?
I was okay. I'd say it was probably an average. So at secondary school, yeah, I think so, because I continued, like, I still had that discipline, I suppose, from the early school. So then I think, yeah, disciplined, I'd say I was probably very quiet.
What was it like to not get hit at school?
Well, that was the early part, because it got outlawed.
Oh, of course, outlawed in the mid-90s, you said, right?
So I still had a few years of that before, until obviously, I guess, I'm not even sure what happened in that room when he pulled my hair in.
Do you think you just disassociated a little bit from it?
Yeah, for sure. In the early days, I'd say I was quite quiet. Just getting on with it. I'd say year 10 is where I started. I wouldn't say misbehave. Do you know what? I actually never think I was badly misbehaved. I think it was more misunderstood. And I would end up with detentions all the time. So from year 10... going into year 11, or maybe it was year 9 as well.
I guess that's when they start putting the pressure on, isn't it? The GCSEs are the most important thing in your life, and they're going to define who you are. This is the joke. They're going to define who you are, John, and you're going to be a failure, mate. If you don't succeed at these things, then God help you.
Yeah. The school record follows you around, apparently.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every employer is going to ask to see your school record. I've employed a lot of people. I've never once, they could have told me they could have literally written A star for every GCSE.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not looking. So
it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an inordinate amount of pressure to put on children. So you're getting detentions for what, not handing the homework or?
Yeah, do you know what? Everything. I think sometimes I just have a bit too much energy and, I don't know, be a bit mischievous in a class and it'd be a detention, and then... I say year 10. I actually think that did start more like year 9, and maybe it was even earlier.
Did you enjoy the playing up? Did it get laughs?
Honestly, it's hard to tell, because I think I've shut off a bit. And where I also think from going from school to then prison to then after, sometimes I can get kind of mixed up between the three. I'm trying to think. I have to really... think about school.
I mean, it is 20 years ago now, right?
Well, you're right, more than 20 years.
I was saying to my 8-year-old the other day, she said, how long have you and Stokes, one of my best mates, she said, how long have you two known each other? I was like, I'm 37, we met at 11, so 26 years. And she's like, to her, that sounds like the long, and it is. I mean, to me, it sounds like a long time. I'm like, 26 years, Jesus.
I'm getting a lot of that. I'm similar age, and I'm getting a lot of that now, where I'm like, oh my God, something happened. I'm like 20 years
20 years ago, mate. Yeah. Well, what was it? The 80s were only 20 years ago to us, but we're talking almost I'm knocking on 40, mate. So all of my friends keep saying that. They're like, oh God, we're knocking on 40. I'm like, hey, we're still mid-30s. I'm 37. Statistically.
Yeah, you don't want to wish it away, do you? Also, I think 40s, even 50s is kind of...
It's changed, hasn't it? I think from when I was a kid, I used to look at people in their 30s and think they had it together, and then you get to your 30s and you go, everybody's making this up. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. We're all just lurching from thing to thing and trying to do the best we can in the moment.
Yeah. The society now doesn't help, does it? I'm sure when we were 10, people in their 30s probably did have it together a lot more. But
in terms of having their own houses and things like that. They bought a house for 20 grand. Cheers, guys. Thanks for buying all of the houses. So from school, were you hanging around with, like, what kind of people were you hanging around with?
So I would say I had my friends at school. Then I started hanging about with different friends outside of school. This was probably happening around year 11 time, GCSE time. So I kind of had that group at school, then I had that group outside. And then once I'd left school, actually, I probably never saw my school friends again.
Have you never seen them since?
No.
Right. Was that, do you think that's a purposeful thing?
I don't know. I think it's just because the way things were for me in that time.
Yeah. So I'm getting the sense that it's a really confusing, tumultuous time for you to be growing up. How did you do in GCSEs? Bear in mind, you're not going to succeed unless you've got A's, right? So, you're not going to have Sunday Times best-selling books unless you got all A's. But how did you do?
So I got 3 C's, which were in PE, RE, and business studies. And then I got D's, E's, and I got a U in geography.
Good man. That's impressive. You've got to work to get that U.
The funny thing is that I was, in year 10 and 11, I had friends in each class, so I would be like bouncing around a bit. Geography was the only one where I didn't really know anyone in the class. There was no one even remotely that I was friends with. Didn't even want to do geography. I wanted to do history, which I'm interested in now. This was something that frustrated me, and I don't know why I go into it now, but because my name is Watts, and I'm sure this is why you pick your subjects to go into at GCSE. I think this is one of the reasons why I used to feel kind of ignored, though, and which kind of went towards what happened later on. And because my name was W, I think they just go through and put people in wherever they want to go. And then, you get to the end and, we got no spaces there. So he goes in there and he goes in there. So out of all the things I tried to pick at school, I didn't get to do any of them. I ended up doing graphics, which I really didn't like, geography, even though I wanted to do history. And all my friends were doing wood tech and history in those ones. And so geography, I would sit there, and I remember that was the one lesson where I would just sit there, look out the window. I've always been a big daydreamer. I just daydream. And they have 2 tests, don't they? 2 tiers. So they used to. So it used to be you go for the higher one or the lower one. And the lower one, I think you'd be a bit easier. You'd aim for a C. And the teacher put me in the higher one. I remember being like,
I didn't even want to be here, let alone in the higher one.
And she was like, I said, I'll probably get a U. She was like, she said, the only way you'll get a U is if you spell your name wrong. And then I remember doing the exam and flicking through it and being like, I have absolutely no idea what's going on in anything in this exam. And I just guessed a few answers, put it away, and I was like, and I got a U.
It's kind of deciding your life for you a tiny bit, isn't it? Because they give you options. And I know they always, obviously I had 2 children now through secondary school. But they give you the options, and it's, we might not be able to fit you in because of timetabling, but, we'll try our best. It doesn't necessarily sound like they tried their best. It just sounds like they went, yeah, just shove you in there.
They 100%, that's what they did. A couple of years after that, when I sort of thought, why did I get put in those classes? And I remember that everyone in the class, or a large number, their last name began with W. And I was like, they've clearly just gone through the list in alphabetical order and then gone, right, you haven't made it, so now you're going here. And I think... I feel like with education, not many people really enjoy it, do they? So you want to make it enjoyable. And if, like for me, I wanted to do history or wood. A lot of people as well went into carpentry. So like doing wood tech, they would do it. And then quite a large number of them have gone into that now. That could have been what I went on and did. And so I think it's detrimental.
So you came out of school, arguably little to no qualifications. What were your hopes? What was your ambition?
When I left school?
Yeah.
I didn't know. So where I grew up was very difficult to get anywhere. So there was like bus links, which were...
Where was it? What was the town?
It's called Wantage. So people
normally... Wantage. I always see Wantage on the sign. There's like Hungerford, Wantage.
So you've got 3 towns around there. You've got Wantage, Didcot, Aberdeen. People normally know Didcot because of the train station. Yeah. So that would be the nearest place. So to get there, you'd have to get a bus that would take you an hour or... that kind of thing. So it's kind of difficult. You kind of I remember feeling quite stuck in the town. And there's not loads of jobs and stuff around there either. So I felt very lost. And my dad back at the time used to be the kind of guy that would be like, you need to get a job, any job. Like, you don't need to enjoy it. it's just work. You have to get the money in, da 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 da. Which is fair enough, but I just remember being like, "Are you serious? Like, I'm 16. Like, what? Yeah, is that it? I've got to, stay living here with my parents and try and find a job where there's not much going on, just to get a little bit of cash." It just seemed a bit like pointless. Made me feel a bit worthless, if anything, I'd say. And I guess if I was describing how I felt then, it was lost. Frustrated is a big one. And I think being a teenager at that time, anger comes into it. And you need that feeling or that sense of purpose. And I think that's what happened next is I found that sense of purpose hanging around with the older lads who were getting involved in what seemed to me at the time to be giving them a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging, and that's it. I felt like I belonged around in this group. When I say group, it's like mixes of people. Yeah, and like some of the people I'd hang around with would be a bit younger than me, and they'd be, still going through school and stuff, and just loads of energy, and they'd be interested in the whole fighting people from the other towns and that sort of thing. And then when you get a bit older, it was the drugs. They were like dealing drugs and taking drugs, and
so it was a kind of progression, but that's not the path that you took. Kind of with this group of people, is it? You made a decision that that wasn't for you.
I saw a lot of stuff with drugs early on. So in that town, which from the outside looks like a very nice town, and it's completely everything. You've got very poor, and you've got fairly wealthy, usually just sort of the farmer types around that area, and so it's got a real mix of things there. But I saw a lot of drugs, and I saw a lot of the negative effects of it.
You tend to in these towns, in these kind of more provincial places, where, as you said, like, if the links aren't necessarily brilliant or whatever. Like where I'm from, so Dursley was a nearby town. The drugs in Dursley were crazy. In Stroud, and Stroud's changed a lot now, but it's still quite druggy. These smaller places where they become these little hotbeds, and have you ever walked to this country?
I love it.
Right, it's one of my favourite things in the world. But that's so true. These small rural places, or they don't have to be rural, but council estates. Like these areas like this where it's hard to get out. What happens?
Because there's nothing going on around.
Nothing going on, and for you to leave school with no support into education, training, something like that, that's something that I know they've been trying to work against. Something like what they call NEETs. They're not in education or some form of workplace training. But yeah, these towns, these places like your Wantages and Dursleys, end up being quite the hotbed for this kind of almost disaffected youth, where you don't know what the hell you're doing. There's no prospects. There's no hope. You don't know a single person that made it. You don't know a single person that succeeded. Was that true for you?
Yeah, 100% true. Yeah, people often got given things like if they were getting into jobs, it was because their parents owned it or knew someone that owned it or something. Like, if it was a trade, a carpentry or something like that. So I think it was very difficult. You had to know someone to get into places, and yeah.
And it feels quite exclusive, doesn't it? Like, it feels like, well, my dad doesn't know that person. My family isn't that kind of family. Those handshakes haven't been made. So
yeah.
Therefore, how am I gonna what am I gonna do? So you're hanging around with these kids. You drinking?
Yeah. Look. Lots of drinking in the park it used to be. I can't drink cider nowadays because I used to drink.
Did you get the 3-litre bottles, the Omega or White Lightning?
White Lightning. £1 a bottle from the petrol station.
And so I was always looked older.
Always warm as well.
Always grim. Like, you're forcing 3 litres down, right? But I was the same. I always looked older, so I was always the one that went and bought the drink.
The groups I had a couple of groups that were kind of separate. So the younger ones were more like involved in the violence part, and it just for out of boredom, really. And when I say the violence part, it was the beginning of social media, and there was the other town, Abingdon. There would be like little gangs over there, and you'd sort of antagonise and
mouth off at each other over MSN and
MSN and Bebo it was at the time, and then that would break out into the street and that sort of thing. And then the older groups were not so much involved with that sort of thing. They were more like I was saying, into the drugs and that kind of thing. And that's where I saw the dirty side of drugs. Like some of the older lot were like on heroin and stuff. Not the ones I was hanging around with, I mean, in the town.
But, you know, like people that are proximal to you, they're like one or two people away from you, kind of.
Yeah, you see it, and then and it's just gross. And like there's a lot of ketamine at that point, and cocaine's like a bit posher, isn't it? So sometimes, but it was a lot of ketamine and MDMA and that kind of thing.
And I mean, some of the kids that are in between that age, so the older ones, but not the smackheads, are you looking up to them?
Yeah, I did look up to them. One of the reasons I looked up to them is because they were a couple of years older than me in school, and they were feared. And I remember I'd hear the names of one of them in particular. I remember hearing his name a lot in school. So like, if I saw him, I'd be like, I'd have that, oh, he's someone, he's something, or. And then as I became friends with him, it made me feel like, oh, now I'm someone because I'm hanging out with that guy who I saw as being someone. It's crazy now. That person in particular I saw on social media recently. I was like, wow. Do you think I
in a good way or a bad way?
Bad way. I was like, he's still around, which is good for him. But I was like, wow. Do you think I looked up to that guy?
Isn't it funny that used to matter? Names mattered, you know, like families mattered. It's like, oh, you don't mess with the ex, you know, and all of that stuff. And how do you get into this situation where you are you fighting?
Yeah, I used to fight as a teenager. Yeah, I'd fight quite a lot just because I don't even know why. Again, those feelings of being lost, feeling frustrated, feeling angry, lots of hormones going around. I felt a part of something, being a part of that group.
Of course, because then you fight, and you know you show yourself to be willing to fight, and people are like, right, John's good.
Yeah, you get a name for yourself as well. And I wanted people to, the way I just described of looking up to that guy I'm talking about. I wanted people to look up to me like that. Yeah. And I remember once, it was in the beginning of phones, phone cameras, you know, on a flip phone or something. And there was a fight with one of my friends in it, and I ran in and I just swung a random punch. I actually don't think I even connected with him, but the way I'd ran in and he sort of fell over, and on the video it looked like I'd gone in and just punched him and straight sparked him out on the floor. And it got me a big reputation. Suddenly that's going around, everyone's going, oh wow, he's gone and floored him in one punch. And I was like, oh yeah. It's funny, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I don't think I even punched him. And I think it's almost a defense mechanism, because when you get that reputation, it's a form of defense. And like, I don't know I wonder if it's similar to where you were growing up as well. Like, there were fights all the time. Like, it was the norm. So like, once I was 18, I was probably younger, but going out in the town on like a Saturday night, it's only small. Like, everyone knows everyone, but there'd be like big police vans, there'd be fights, 10 fights each night. You'd know they'd be kicking off. We used to have these parties in this village outside, and people would sell tickets. You know everyone who's going. You're all basically friends. Every time, without fail, there'd be, you know, basically riot police up there, and there'd be big old fights against the police, against each other. It was absolutely crazy. Now I live in St Albans in Hertfordshire, and I've lived here 12 years. I've seen one fight in the entire time that I've lived here, and that to me was always normal.
It's crazy how
I didn't realise how
normalised it becomes. Yeah, and you've seen Fight Club, right? Where, you know, part of it is you need to go out and start a fight, and you see how hard it is to start a fight. Most people don't want to fight. I know it's fictional, but that's probably true of, you know, like in St Albans. If you got to go and start a fight, most people wouldn't want to, and certainly wouldn't necessarily even know how. Because most people don't want to do that. But as you say, when it's normalised, when you see violence as kind of something that just happens, you're like, right, well, it's very strange then. As you said, I live in a lovely little village now. I bet there hasn't been a fight there since like 1976. But how did you... Were there weapons involved in any of these fights?
Yeah, so it got progressively worse.
Do you think social media helped? Oh, helped is the wrong word. Do you think social media exacerbated that?
Yeah, I think it did. And I think it was that period. I always described that time, so around 2006, 2007, unless it was just the bubble I was in. But like the media used to always call it Broken Britain and hoodies and yobs and that kind of thing. And
Chavs.
yeah, and I think there were like postcode wars going on everywhere. And I think what I noticed after my time in prison, I think I realised, oh no, that's actually calmed down a lot. And I think we moved away. I actually think we're probably heading into that sort of time again.
There's a lot of social unrest, mate. Like, that's what we're feeling right now, isn't it? There's a lot of people that are feeling like my life's shit, and I think that they're blaming the wrong people. They're looking at the wrong people to say, hey, my life's shit because of you. Moving here, and it's like, life's just not great at the minute for lots of people for lots of different reasons, and we need to look at those reasons. And they're going to be multiple. They're going to be, part of it might be immigration, but it's not going to be the whole picture. Like, let's not, hang our hat on. That's the one thing. That's why I'm not feeling like I'm succeeding or, like doing well in life. It's like, no, a lot of people feel quite, like, malaise is a good term for what I think a lot of people are feeling in society right now. So you did feel that malaise. You did feel that despondency. So there's weapons. Are you carrying a weapon?
Yeah, so I carried, so like the first time I ever carried a weapon was this night where there was a lot of hype going on, and there was this bus of people. They were going to come from Didcot. They were a lot worse than us, I would say, like in terms of it's a bigger town, there's more people, but a lot of them were, even as teenagers, they were in and out of prison. Like, you'd be like, oh shit. And they were coming down. They always would have weapons with them. So I remember I put a dumbbell bar in my jeans, and that was the first time. I never used it, but I took that out, and I remember going out thinking, oh, I feel better now. I can walk along the street, and actually if I need to, I can pull that out. And whether it's not always like, I didn't take it to attack someone, but I took it out to defend myself, or even to pull it out, and then that's another form of defense. Or so to give an example, and I've spoken about this before, I think this is the best example to describe what I was up against at that time. Was at one point a car pulled up outside a park that me and some friends were at, and they jump out. It was probably 5 lads, each of them with a different weapon, and you run away. One guy was on crutches, forget about it. He gets beat within an inch.
Okay, somebody, an acquaintance, right?
Beat within an inch of his life. He's in hospital for a good few weeks, and that was normal. So
I bet you can't be the slowest.
Well, yeah, as that proves. But so then you want something that protects you, and I don't know why I got a knife, but it ended up being a knife I would carry. I suppose it's easy to carry because it was a little flick thing like that big, and in the same way I'd stick my keys, my phone and my wallet in my pockets, I'd put that in my pockets. I remember sometimes I'd leave the house, and then I'd be like, the same way now that I'd leave, and I'd go,
phone, wallet, keys.
Yeah, I'll go, oh wait, no, I forgot that. So I'd go and put it in my pocket, and I carried it probably 300 times without it ever coming out. And then there was this one night in particular where I think in reality it was all my emotions were bubbling up, and the frustration of, at this point, being 18 years old. If I had a job, I don't think I had a job. If I had a job, it was Sainsbury's night shift, which was soul destroying for an 18-year-old to be doing. And very lonely as well, because I'd like turn up to work, it'd be dark, and then I'd do it and I'd leave and I'd go sleep all day, and then it was just horrible. Not that makes what I did any different, but I just felt so frustrated, so lost, so angry, useless. I'm trying to think of any other words that try and describe it. I don't think those words are strong enough for what I was feeling at the time. And so I'm in town one day and I see a guy who had a lot of problems with him. I don't even know why in hindsight, but for some reason we clashed. I think he'd moved from another town, and then he used to sort of, he sounds silly, but at that age he'd act like the bad man and he'd get mouthy with people. I think he'd had a few fights with some of my friends who I was always quite protective over, and so I'd seen him and I was like, right, I'm going over there, rah, rah, rah. And that's the first time I think I'd there was one time the knife was pulled out, which was actually one of the reasons I went to prison. I don't know if you want to go into that.
Yeah.
But that had happened earlier.
Yeah.
But this guy had pulled out the knife. I'd sort of threatened him a bit, and he was still getting mouthy, so I'd like pulled out the knife as if to be like, well, you wouldn't carry on talking. And then that's when one of my friends came over my shoulder. He pulled this guy's hood over his head, gave him a few slaps, pushed him away, said, see you later. He was the only one that saw the knife, and we walk off, and he goes, nah, no one's getting stabbed tonight. Get rid of that knife, which I should have done. And that's it. But I'd still had all that pent up anger and frustration. So then we go to a kebab shop, we get some food. My mate, another friend, has like a confrontation. My friends are always like that. They're confrontations left, right and centre. I don't think I even started most of them, but it was always, if it started, I would get involved as well. And the guy was a bit older, involved in the older lot that I used to hang around with at that point, who the ones involved in the drug dealing and that kind of thing. He was very much in that circle, but even older than them. I think he was 24. And so that had kicked off, and then we'd gone down this, it all settled a little bit. We went down this hill, and it's a dark area, and it's just him, me and my friend. They start fighting again. I get involved. The guy, my friend who I was with, says, stab him, stab him, stab him. And I pulled out a knife and I stabbed him. And don't know why I did it, other than frustration and anger and feeling all of those, that big storm of emotions was going on. And for whatever reason, it turned into me, the fact that I had the knife, it ended up getting used, and only through sheer luck that he didn't die, really. And I wouldn't be sitting here with you now. Realistically, it'd probably be hoping that I could apply for parole at some point in the next few years. And then he wouldn't be here as well, which is something that's important to mention. He then walked back up this hill. Straight away, I knew what I'd done. I saw the blood, and I was like, it was like all those emotions suddenly went from being at the height to suddenly going like that. And I was like, fuck. So then I sort of pushed him towards town, back up that hill.
Were you talking to him?
Yeah, I can't remember what. I think it's all a blur. The whole thing is a massive blur, even as I'm describing it to you now.
How much older was he?
So he was 20. I was 18. I think he was 24. And then lucky for me, I can talk about these sort of things all days and go down on different tangents. There was a police officer, a woman who used to look after me quite well. Like, she was always trying to give me advice. Like, anytime I used to get arrested a lot for little things, and it was often like a little caution or a little telling off or stuff like that. It wasn't ever anything really big, but she was always there. She was like, you need to stop doing this. She was quite good. Like, the police station was quite far away, and you'd have to find your way back. She'd be like giving me a lift and giving me a little lecture on the way, and I did appreciate it even at the time. She, by pure coincidence and luck, she was coming down the hill, and then he'd gone up, I think 10 meters or so, and collapsed. She was right there to give first aid. So I've often thought she's guardian angel for me or him or someone. I'm not sure.
You both.
Yeah, and then so he, fortunately, got operated on or whatever they'd had to do, and spent, I think, 2 weeks in hospital before making a full recovery, which I'm extremely grateful for. And I think about it a lot. I don't often talk about this, but I think about it sometimes, and I get so scared. I'm like, and also like, how did I do that to a person? This is what I thought straight away after as well. Like, but my life actually drastically changed. My attitude and everything drastically changed the next day after that happened. It was almost like this big storm, that happening, and then suddenly it was like, suddenly everything was clear, and what am I doing? But yeah, when I think back now, I'm like, the fact that I harmed someone in that way, I'm so ashamed of. I do talk about it for various reasons, but
do you mind me jumping ahead and asking if you've spoken to him since?
No, I haven't, and that's a question I get asked a lot. It's a bit of a sensitive subject because people when they hear that you've done something like that, I think you always assume that it's someone who's I don't want to say innocent, because he was innocent. Like, no one deserves to get stabbed, and he certainly didn't deserve to get stabbed. but that environment and stuff, it's not the type of place where I could just go and, I've had death threats as near as 4 years ago. And this happened 20 years ago. So, yeah, it's not really what's the word? It's not really... It's not really the environment where I can go and put myself out there and say, I'd like to have a chat, I'd like to...
There's no reaching across the aisle there.
I have in the last 10 years, I have spoke to people who still live in that town and know these people, and I have said, do you think maybe... It's same with the guy who I just first mentioned, who I pulled the knife on there. He is actually in a relationship with one of my best friends from their sister, so they're very close now. And I was like, I feel really guilty about that night. I'd love to just apologise to him. And then he was like, he's not the type of person you want to apologise to. He's still living that kind of life.
So is the guy that you're in the incident with still living that kind of life, do you think?
I don't really know. I don't think so. I think he's probably, because now he'll be in his 40s. From what I've seen or heard. And also, I guess it's also fair to say, when I say death threats, that's not come from him. That's come from the people around him. And but I also had the same offence happen to me as well. Not the stabbing, but mine was GBH with intent. And I basically had that happen to me around that time from that group of people as well.
As repercussion for?
Yeah.
Right.
So my nose was broken, my eye socket was broken. And
so after the stabbing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you were arrested the next day?
Yeah. So I'd gone home that night. After that happened, I'd gone home, laid on my bed, didn't sleep a wink, got up, went to try and see my friend who I was with that night before. He was clearly sleeping like a baby because he didn't feel like he needed to feel guilty for anything. So I sat on a bench waiting, and then him and another friend came, and we just sort of I just remember walking around the town a bit, saw that same officer that had seen him, and she said he's stable. So I remember then thinking, hope, because
that's a long time to be sat with that concern that he might not be alive.
Yeah, I jump around a bit, so I didn't go home that night straight away. What I'd done, and maybe I did, and I'd gone back out, and where the incident happened, there was a car park that looked over onto where it happened. To get from there to there would take you 20 minutes walking, but I could see. So I went over there and I had a look, and I could see all the forensics and the rope up, and I was like...
all the police tape and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it didn't look very good, so I was like, oh shit. So then when I saw her and then she said he's stable, that was suddenly a moment of relief. Important to say for him as well, I think if anything at that point, I didn't care about myself so much, actually. I think, for a little while there, until I ended up in prison, which was still another 6 or 7 months away. I never actually cared about myself. I actually cared about other people, cared about him, because I felt that guilt of what I'd done. And then also my family, because then suddenly I saw what was going on with them, and they would get sort of threats and have not nice things.
So let me ask you, what was your family's response to the more petty arrests?
I don't really remember. I think it was not a lot. I think a lot of the time they probably didn't even know, because I was either, I'd get arrested and then I'd find my way home and just say I was somewhere else. I don't think they knew that much. It's only if the police would come to the house, I suppose.
Right. So it wasn't something that was spoken about. You weren't taken to the side by your dad and John, come on, mate.
It's one of those memories I don't really have, but I certainly was, because he had found a knife before and got rid of it and given me a bit of a lecture. But for a kid that age, going through those emotions and stuff, it was in one ear out the other.
Yeah. So, arrested the next day. You were bailed.
No idea why. Went into the police station.
Did they come to arrest you, or did you hand yourself in?
They came to arrest me. And in the interview, I tried to sort of, get around it a little bit at first, and then the realization came to me, and I was just like, you ain't getting away from this. so I just admitted it. I admitted it as it happened completely. And I thought, right, where am I going now? I'm obviously going to be remanded and go to prison. And then they released me, and I have absolutely no idea why. I can only assume they didn't have enough evidence. You'd have thought someone admitting it would be enough evidence.
Or they didn't see you as a flight risk, or...
I don't know. Well, I've never actually
We're guessing, right?
I've never known anyone with an offence like that to get bail like that. It's kind of weird. They didn't have the knife. I threw it in a river that ran past it, and they did then get it after my arrest. So I don't know if they were waiting to get more evidence and have that evidence, and then by that point I'm already on bail. I'm not sure, but it was.
I mean, it does leave you open then for revenge.
And it did, as I mentioned, yeah. So I had to be. It caused shockwaves throughout the town then, because of people that I was associated with were associated with him as well, and it caused this big rift. I had to be very careful about where I was going. So I used to go to this park at the top of my road, and that's where a lot of my friends would turn up. And I'd have people outside who would literally just phone up and be like, this person's on the way and this person's on the way. So I'd always get out of there quickly. And I had a level of protection in the sense of my older brother, who's 6 years older than me, so he would have been 24 as well. And he was involved, he was quite heavily involved in like the county lines drug sort of side of things, and his contacts were all quite nasty people who were a lot higher up in that hierarchy. And
so that afforded you some form of protection.
Yeah, on that night so I'd seen this one guy who I knew from this job in Sainsbury's, and he's a horrible I got on with him really well at the time. He's a horrible piece of work. He's, often been in prison for beating up his girlfriends and things and stuff like that, even now. And he came past on his bicycle and looked at me and he goes, "Oh, you're not dead yet then?" And I was like, at that point, normally I would have gone, I better move because I think these lot might come. And I did it for whatever reason. I was like, I can't be bothered today. I'm just going to stay with all my friends. And an hour or so later, it's dark. I'm sat on a bench with two girls. Everyone else sort of a bit all over the place. And I just see these three big shadows come out. And they were... so it was the guy that cycled past, and then it was these other two from this local traveller family, big guys, and they just pummeled me. And then they said, if you don't go to prison, we're going to kill you. And then later it transpired that my older brother had basically given the okay that, do it, but no weapons and that kind of thing.
That was going to be my question, were there weapons, but it wasn't.
No.
Did you even try to defend yourself?
No. I sat there and it's quite horrible, really. I should have at least tried to get up and run. I didn't. I think because I felt I deserved it, to be honest. So I just sat there and one after, and I was I'm a smaller guy now even, but back then, I was a kid still, and these were grown like adults. I just remember every shudder going through my whole body. Yeah. But I suppose in the same way as what I said, I didn't care about myself back then. I cared about what I'd done to people, and I cared about my family, and I cared about and my friends and what I'd done, and I felt so guilty about it all that I didn't actually care about myself.
So was it almost a relief then when the trial, or when the the court date came?
Yeah, I would say so. I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, I suppose it was. I knew I was going to prison. By this point, it's happened in June 2007. I ended up, I went to do my plea in January 18th, 2008. So it's a good 6 months.
It's a long time. It's a long time to be sat there feeling the way you're undoubtedly feeling.
And by that point, there's no point trying to get a job or trying to do anything, because you're going to prison. You've got people out there who want to kill you, and what do you do? So actually, I do think that time set me up so that when I went in, if I'd have gone in the day after it happened, I think things would have been different if I was remanded. The fact that I had that time to realise and recognise what I'd done on everyone else, myself, the victim, and on my family, as I keep mentioning, I guess that set me up to be like, right, when I go to prison, you're going to have to take these consequences, whatever it is, do what you can to turn it around and make, you can't change what you've done, but you can change what you do going forward, can't you?
You are given 6.5 years. Now that is, and we can jump ahead a little bit. I don't want to concentrate on this too much. You've already done an amazing amount of talking. You don't hear this story not just yours, but people don't speak eloquently about this sort of thing and the things that led them to it, and the shame and the guilt and these things. So you're given 6.5 years. There's an added ABH. We should say, if people want to go and Google that, they can. Okay, so you're given 6.5 years. So you're looking at getting out when you're 24. Getting towards
22.
22 from 18.
Yeah, for so 6.5 year sentence, served 3 years, 3 months. At that time, that's how it was.
Yeah. So looking at getting out at 22, did you think, cause it's only up to 21, isn't it? Youth offending institutes. So did you think that you're going to end up in an adult's prison as well?
Yeah. So as I was going through, so I was pleaded guilty, remanded into custody, knew I was going in, and that's it. So then I should have been sentenced a month later. Between that going into prison and then being sentenced, the police come in and they arrest me for an ABH, which had happened 2 years before that, I think, maybe a year before that, and before the other offence had happened. So I felt quite strongly that one was self-defence, and so I pleaded not guilty and went to trial, which is why I wasn't then sentenced until July. This is quick now. I mean, since COVID and the way the prisons have blown up, people are waiting 2-3 years. But back then, that was quite a fair while. So I wasn't sentenced until July. And yeah, I got 6 years for the GBH, 6 months for the ABH. And I was expecting, it was a funny one, I was expecting anything from 4 to 5. Looking at the other people that were at that age doing a similar offence, it was like 4 or 5 years. But I think the ABH, even though I got the 6 months, I think it meant the judge was like, he's obviously done something
on the higher
twice.
End.
Yeah.
So from the sentencing, did you get a chance to say bye to your parents?
Yeah, I knew I was going.
Yeah.
I knew I was going weeks before. I knew at the 18th was going to be, I knew I was going to plead guilty. So I knew I was going to go to prison. The thing I really remember from that morning waking up is my little sister, who is now 25, was like 7 at the time. And I adored her. She was the youngest in our family. And she came in, gave me a hug and was saying bye. And I was like, wow. So that was kind of tough.
It's a really hard time for siblings, and not to say it's not for you.
Yeah.
But, having been on the side of it, and for any family members.
Yeah.
It's...
I think in a lot of ways it's harder for family.
I don't know. It's hard to say, right? But there's such an amount of fear, of concern for that person. Such an enormous amount, because you hear everything you hear and know of prison, of youth offending institutions. I mean, again, I won't name family members, but some have been in and around them and through them. They're almost a proving ground for certain people to try and show just how hard they are. Youth offending places, which makes it just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than adult prison, because these people are desperate to prove themselves.
And there's a lot more energy as well.
Exactly, right, and and the hormone. They say that our what is it, that our frontal cortex or whatever is not developed until 25, right? So there's all of these, like, nobody's straight going in there. Everybody's chemically imbalanced, and we're not quite where we should be. So how did you find it? Like, I know it's such a broad question, but how did you, once you're in there, you're led in your bed that first night, how are you feeling?
I think there's not a lot you can do. For me, it was out of my control. So it was about just being there and adapting to my surroundings. And I think that's what I did. Something I've always said, and one of the reasons why I think I was able to do what I did in prison is the taking responsibility, is even then, I very much thought I deserve to be here. I've done something wrong.
So do you think step one for a lot of people should be accountability?
I was often shocked by people who had done crimes. They weren't not guilty. They were very much guilty, who felt like they didn't deserve to be there.
It's a typical refrain, isn't it? I didn't do anything. I don't. They've stitched me up. I shouldn't be here. and it's like
Yeah,
there's zero ability to take accountability for their actions there.
Yeah, I know people that did offences who are 100%, well, they tell me they've done this offence, they're in there, they're serving their time, but they feel like, I don't deserve to be here, I shouldn't be here. And I don't know where that mentality comes from, but I found that was very common. And I think that was where I was quite unique, is that I was like, I deserve to be here. I'm just going to do what I have to do and do what I can to change it. And I think that was the number one thing that led to me doing whatever I did.
And you really did. You really threw yourself into, I guess, trying to be a model inmate, I guess.
I think a lot of people do. I mean, in prison, you'd be surprised. What you have is people that have very poor mental health who will react to it in specific ways and cause real havoc. You will get some people that are, I'd say, just bad people, and not as many as you'd think. And then I think for a lot of people, they'll try and get on and do what they have to do. And
You just got to get on.
yeah, so yeah, you do. I mean, obviously, there's no, hopefully, not too much drink or drug, so people aren't under the influence. A lot of people will have routine because that's what prison is, or what prison was before they've done whatever they've done. There's routine, and you can get to the gym, and you can read books, and I find that can kind of mellow people. And then you want to make friends because you don't want to be on your own the whole time. So you'll make friends. And
Are you nervous to make friends in there?
it was funny at the beginning because you'll go onto the...
Feeling everybody out, right?
Yeah, but you'll go in at the bottom, and then you have to earn your way up into... So it's split into wings and different... what would you call it? You basically have basic, standard, enhanced, and something else. And depending how well behaved you are, how long you've been there, what courses you've done, you can get your way up and you can get more privileges. But when you go in, unless you're very wealthy, which I'd seen happen a couple of times...
I've often wondered that because we weren't. I didn't really hear much about that sort of thing from the people I was close to at the time. But is that true? You felt, yeah.
I've seen people go from induction wing to almost open unit. They might not be allowed out because the sentence won't allow it, but they'll be on the open unit where you're not even locked in your cells. Right. I saw a little too much of that.
Because the money's passing hands.
Do you know, I don't know exactly what it is. That's what I always assumed at the time. But then nowadays I get older and I go, how much money does someone have to pay to get that? Because you'd have to pay a fair whack if you were paying for it. But for whatever reason, maybe it was just that if they've come from a private school or something, maybe it's just they're like, oh, you don't belong here, we'll put you here. But I don't think it should be like that.
Yeah, you don't belong here, don't worry, go over with...
which I think is really unfair, because I think if you're going to face the consequences of committing a crime in that way, you shouldn't get better treatment.
As you said, you need to, earning your kind of enhanced is something you should be proud of.
Yeah, and I think that for me at that point, I suppose it's almost like being stripped back, and then you're learning again, and you're learning, I need to behave to get this, and then need to do this to get to that level.
Did it feel almost like school again for you?
Oh, 100%, yeah, because you have a timetable just like school. It felt like school where you had to be very careful about what you say to who. Right, yeah. But yeah, you got to be very, very careful. And like, I suppose going on that wing at first, which is the mainstream wing, and you're seeing all sorts there, and that's where you got to be careful. I did make some friends, but they weren't friends that I would stay friends with. It was kind of like you'd make a friendship, but then okay, I'm getting up to this wing now, so I'm going over there. Right. But as I settled in and got into the more enhanced status, I made some good friends actually. People I still speak to now.
And that's the thing as well, is I know people from, again, family members' time that that they're still friends with now, and they're not bad people. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the common understanding is, well, if you've done time, you must be X. It's like, well, you've talked about rehabilitation, and prison is not there as as something to just lock you up and throw away the key and to beat you about the head with. Prison should be there as a means for exactly as you've done, for take accountability, rehabilitate, try and become a more productive, better member of society. Right? That's what it's there for. Or that's what, in my opinion.
I think in most people's opinions, it should be. Yeah.
but it's so stigmatized. It's so, oh, Christ, you've done time. How are you ever gonna get a job? How are you ever, oh, you're always going to be thought of in that way. So, do you feel like you had to be a different version of you, or do you feel like you were the John that walked in, who was the one that walked out?
I think at that age and in that time, I think, like I said about being stripped back, I think that was a time for me to go in, and I think I was myself, and I think I grew. It's very different from someone going into prison as an adult.
There's a lot of predatory behaviour in prison, in the sense of people will prey on people if there are weaknesses, right? I haven't been to prison. Again, lots of anecdotal knowledge of. Like, how did you manage with that? Were you like, was that something you kind of you consciously thought about? Like, not to be a victim, not to be seen as somebody that's going to be a pushover.
Yeah. I think I already had that from the environment that I was living in before. There's definitely a lot of bullies in prison, and yeah, if you are vulnerable, then yeah, you will get preyed on, which is quite sad. I think sometimes I've seen it before as well, especially after I've been there a couple of years and you become a part of the furniture, and you can build up a reputation enough to put your foot, to stop people like that. And I've seen that, and I've probably done that myself. But yeah, I think, for vulnerable people, you're probably not going to have a very good time, especially in the sense that things like canteen and money, I would have seen people at sometimes taking other people's canteen, order me this, order me that. You have to be strong. That's something I was always quite good at, is like, if somebody did try, I would, even if they were much bigger than me, I would still be able to look them in the eye and say no. I think it also helped with what my offence was as well. I think if you're a burglar, for example, I think it's a bit different, whereas I think at that point, there was quite a number of people in there for the same offence as me, and I think you'd always look at those people slightly, oh, well, they've obviously done something before, so they could probably do something again.
Yeah. So what did you talk about, throwing yourself into, becoming an enhanced inmate, and what kind of programs were there? Like, what was there to keep you on the straight and narrow? What was there to give you some semblance of purpose to your day?
At first, not a lot. So I still remember, I think there were some weeks where I wouldn't have a shower for 5 days because I couldn't even get out to get a shower.
Really?
Yeah, that's how bad it was. And they'd only really let
This
you
is in
out.
Reading?
Yeah.
That's
Old Victorian
Yeah.
prison, that is. It's closed now. Went back. It turned into a museum for Oscar Wilde, and I temporarily I went back, took my girlfriend at the time around all my old cells.
How was that?
Very surreal.
I bet.
Yeah.
When was that? When did you go back?
I think it's still quite a few years ago, probably 2017.
Right.
Yeah. I was doing maths and English, so they have the general education thing. So I signed up for maths and English, and in my head I was thinking, I'll go. You think you need C's in the GCSEs, as we spoke about. So I was thinking, let's see if I can redo my GCSEs and then start. That's what I thought you had to start afresh from. So I started doing that, which gave me a bit of structure to the days. But generally, I mean, in prison you're in your cell a lot. You're in your cell a lot more than people think. People think you can just, they open your door and you can go out to the gym, or you can you have a timetable, and a lot of the time you haven't even got the staff for that timetable, so you're not even doing it. But you might get an hour where you go out into the exercise yard, which is just a concrete yard with razor wire everywhere, or you might get 45 minutes in an association room where you can go get a book from a library or play a quick game of pool. Like, it's not what people think it is. And so I was just trying to pick up whatever I could. So it was maths, English, I think maybe I did business as well. Then outside of the education department is actually, or was there, and it is for young offenders now. It doesn't really serve much purpose. You're not getting a real qualification. You might just be learning something, but for what purpose? I suppose it's getting you out of your cell and you're doing something, but it's not really going towards anything. But they do have other courses that will, depending on the prison you're at. Like they used to, not where I was, but I think only that you spoke about, they would have like a building course, you know, you'd learn bricklaying. So stuff like that can be good. They used to do the CSCS card. So they used to do that so people would at least have something to be able to get on a building site. But there's not actually too much going on. There wasn't, and there isn't. People think there is. Like when I talk about my story, often I brush over it as well. And I'm just telling the points, and people think, oh, he went to prison, he learnt to cook, and he did this and did that. The qualification I did was a dud. Like, it was just some like bits of paperwork that someone would come in and tick some boxes, and I wasn't actually being taught anything realistically other than what one person would just teach me in front of me. But yeah, the courses that you get would be like, the ones outside, so I suppose that's where you're leaning towards, isn't it? So there was a couple of Prince's Trust courses, and then the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, which is what I did. The MVQ in professional cookery, which is what I ended up doing, was, as I just mentioned, someone would come in every month and tick some boxes on some bits of paper, but essentially I was just working in the officer's mess. So people sometimes, not many, most...
So you don't feel like you'd really learnt to cook there?
No, I mean, I learned the basics. I learned how to make a bechamel sauce, and I learned how to make a shepherd's pie, or, you know, things like that, things that we were making for the staff. But would I say I learnt to cook? Not really, no.
Did it kind of awaken a passion in you for it? Really?
No, so...
It's funny, that's the story that gets told, right? You know, I've read that a few times, you know, where you found your passion for cooking, where...
Do I say prison?
No, you don't.
Oh.
But it's been said. You know, like if you read articles, it's like, you know, in prison where he found his passion for cooking, you know, things like that.
It's the type of story that there's so many bits to it. It should be a whole book, really, or like you could...
John, I have a feeling that's going to happen at some point, all right?
You've
got a lot to go yet.
We could do a 10-part podcast series, because I go off. So even now I'm finding myself, my brain is darting off.
Yeah, mine's the same. This is why I do it, mate. It's great.
It could be structured, and you could do a 10-part, and it would actually be a really interesting story of that bit. But so if you brush over the story in a nutshell, you say, yeah, I learnt to cook in prison, and and that sparked my passion. That cooking in prison was basically the only qualification that actually meant anything outside. That MVQ in that prison, that was the only one that did anything. So that's why I wanted to aim for that, because I was like, get a qualification. When I'm in the officer's mess and I'm making these shepherd's pie, and I'm cooking an omelette and stuff like that, I'm making a birthday cake, and I'm ticking these boxes on the bit of paper, all I was thinking was, when I get out, I can go get a job anywhere, doesn't matter. All I cared about was that I could get employed, because everyone tells you can't get a job if you go to prison. So that's all I cared about. I wouldn't even go as far as saying I enjoyed the cooking at that point. I enjoyed the eating it. I didn't necessarily enjoy the cooking of it. It was just a thing to do. And
I mean, working in the officer's mess is quite a privilege, right?
Oh, it was the best job in the prison, yeah. Yeah, it was because you'd... obviously, you'd all be locked up over lunch, but you're in the kitchen, so you'd be able to stay out longer. You're going through the bit where the staff go when after they've been fighting and grappling and everything, and they go out. You're there in the bit where they're relaxing, so it's a much bigger privilege, and you get to know the officers.
So you feel like there's a relationship building aspect.
Yeah, and you do. Like people, I was shocked. My first evening in prison, when I arrived in reception, and the guy starts making jokes, and I was expecting to be thrown in a room and hit with a bat, hit with a truncheon. I was like, wait, this guy's funny. Why is he making jokes? And then I realised they're not there to fight you. They're there to look after. This is their job. They're just there to look after you.
It is a job, and not a very well paid one. Bless them for what they do, what they have to put up with.
And that's why it gets flooded with drugs.
Christ. So you mentioned the Duke of Edinburgh. You're famously the first person to
do bronze, silver, and gold. I take too much credit for that. I mean, I
did it.
I get given a lot of credit. I did it, and it was brilliant. I think it was... I had to do all these other courses, enhanced thinking skills, anger management. These are part of a sentence plan. So when you go to prison, they give you this plan and you have to follow it throughout. Especially if you go for parole, you'd have to tick those boxes. I found those were utterly useless. I had to sit there and listen to someone telling me why I should think more about something, and you're like, this is not the way to do it. The Duke of Edinburgh's award, you being told to focus on something for a set period of time, record it, and it's learning a skill, it's volunteering, which is great, and you probably want to go into that. It's the expedition, so you're putting yourself outside your comfort zone, you're working with people, your communication skills are getting better, and the physical, you're going to the gym, or you're, instead of just going to the gym or just playing football and recording it, I was like creating circuits for people. So like, right, I'm doing a bodyweight circuit. So things like that. It's pushing you outside your comfort zone. It's building your confidence, self-esteem, all those sorts of things. It's making you feel like you're achieving something. I could ring up my parents and say, I'm working towards my bronze divvy. I've got my bronze divvy. I'm now working towards my silver. And it's that continuous moving up and then being able to tell people. And so
where you described yourself as quite, I guess, as a teenager, lost, all of the, without drive, without, direction, all of these things. Do you think this was giving you some form of direction and some kind of self-esteem?
Yeah, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a sense of being. It gave me structure. Gave me something to be proud of. Gave me something I thought I could go out and say, if I have an MVQ in cookery and I've got a gold, at that point, a Duke of Edinburgh's award, I'm on the way to give myself an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly that. What was the timeline between starting the bronze and...
It's basically the entire time. It's 3 years to do the whole lot. So it was within a few months and I started doing the bronze. Only lucky I got on it. Reading Football Club funded it. That's the other thing. People think it's given to you and they're like, oh, if you go to prison, you get this and that. It's always charities and businesses are funding this stuff. It's not anything to do with the prison. And so Reading Football Club had funded it and started working towards it. Loads of people wanted to do it because, people would volunteer for anything that would get them out of their cell. Because I was expecting a long sentence and I was still young, so I knew I'd be in the YOI. That was just for them a box to go, he's going to be here on a long sentence, we'll do it with him.
So it's not done on your surname anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's done on how bad I was.
It's done on the sentence and done on your likelihood of still being there, and that makes sense. Because how many people wanted to do it, would you say, and how many people ended up getting to do it?
60 people, 15 got on it, on the bronze.
A quarter of people onto the bronze. And I guess you're already showing an aptitude or willingness to learn. You're doing your maths and English and all these things. So all these things would be points in your points for you, right? Did you get much visitation? As in, did your family come and visit you a lot? Yeah,
and I think that's another important thing.
It's a very unique experience on both sides of the fence, I imagine. Yeah. How much did that keep you going?
I never thought about it so much at the time. I suppose in a way I took it for granted. But that's incredibly helpful to have that support. I see it now when I go back into prisons and stuff, and I'm like, that support network is invaluable. The people that don't have it, I think they're fighting a much bigger battle. So yeah, my parents would alternate and they'd come once a week pretty much. So I'd have, the only person that came every time was my little sister, who's now like my biggest fan as well. It's quite cute. But yeah, they would come. There's a lot of people I didn't see. People now apologise to me like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't come see you and stuff. And I'm like, I have to send you.
Yeah, it's not just as easy. Yeah, that's the thing, right?
But it's funny that people think, and then that actually makes me go, wait, you thought you could just turn up and you didn't, you fucker.
Yeah, wow. No, I know, it's not the easiest thing to do. Yeah, it's got to be very...
I never expected people to be honest. I'm grateful that my parents would alternate and I'd see one of them and you can have a chat, you can debrief and I'd see my sister. And
what was your favourite snack that you used to get from there?
I used to get every time hot chocolate, Skittles, Mars bar. It's like for you inside, it's like you're touching the outside.
Right.
Because you're going into the room, for me it was close to the gate and you'd only go in there if you've got a visit. So it always felt good walking into that room. You're about to see people from normal life. They're going to tell you what's been going on and you're really interested about what's going on outside with even though you can get newspapers and you have a TV, but hear about their perspectives on what's going on with family. And it's amazing how much changes in 3 years. You don't really, if I look back now as I'm out and free and I'm like, oh, nothing changed from 3 years ago, but it does. You just don't realise because you're in it and you're moving with it. But yeah, when you're inside and then you're hearing what's going on, and it's like, oh wow, so much changes. But no, I was incredibly grateful for them to come in and support in the way that they did.
I think from my side, it was the concern. I used to walk in there and just pray that he hadn't been in some form of, they hadn't been in some form of issue.
Even when I didn't have, I was lucky. I didn't have too many issues. Well, I did. There was the other groups that I used to fight against when I was younger. I did have a moment where loads of them came in at once, and that was a really difficult time because I was focused on building myself up. I wasn't wanting any trouble, and suddenly they came in. I had to be very careful about where I was and what I was doing. There was a few real hairy moments.
But nothing came to blows.
No, I don't even know how it didn't. I think it's purely from the way I was handling things, to be honest with you. I was quite lucky, and then later down the line as well, I had something similar, but by that point I'd already built up confidence, built up a way to, by the end point, at the beginning point it wouldn't have worked with words, by the end point it would have worked with my words. And there was a big moment as well, I'm jumping around here, but there was a big moment where I'd seen one of these lads who's probably the worst, but I think he's in prison now. He spent basically his whole life in prison, very violent, very unpredictable. And I saw him one morning when I was walking to work, not long after getting out of prison. I was like, oh, fuck. And he sort of shook my hand. And to this day, I don't know if he was confused about who I was and thought I was someone else. I've wondered if that was it.
Let that be the case, man.
At the time, I'd been on TV and I'd done the Duke of Edinburgh's award and I'd seen as a model prisoner and I was working for Jamie Oliver, so I thought maybe he knew that and thought, oh, fair play to you.
I mean,
whichever way it is, I don't know.
Either of those things is okay. Right, cool.
And then with visits, so what I was going to say was I very much protected my family from anything, if anything was bad or if I was in a bad place, which did happen naturally. I always tried to tell them the best. If something good was happening I never wanted to tell them the bad. And that was, I suppose, my way of, a bit like how I said earlier, after everything had happened, I didn't care about myself. I think I'm very much like that now. I often care about the people around me and how they feel and what they're going through, and I worry about myself second. So I always wanted to make sure on those visits that they thought things were going very well and they thought, I was always safe.
It's always
for that as well.
Talk about the positive things rather than.
My brother's been in prison as well, and I was in prison first, so I knew about it after. But I know that concern of when you have a family member in prison, and it's like, are they handling themselves? I cared more about him being there than I cared about me being there years ago. So
right, you're on your path. It's Duke of Edinburgh, positivity, all of these good things. Does the release date come around quickly?
My release date? Oh my God, no. That 3 years, when I think back, 3 years and 3 months, that's how long I was in for. If I think back that time from now to 3 years ago, I'm like, wow, that's flown by. Yeah. And any time since I got out to now, flown by. Those 3 years, 3 months felt like it could have been 60 years. Forever, like every day drags. You're constantly looking at that date, far ahead. It never feels like it's getting closer. Until it did come, and it kind of didn't really know what to expect. But when it did come, I was like, God, I don't even know what that feeling is. It's pretty incredible I had like a smooth process because I was on the resettlement unit. So for 10 months I was going out and working. So it's not like I walked out the gate and I hadn't seen outside. That was a gradual process for me. But to walk out and be like, oh, I'm free, I've finished that. That burden that's been hanging over me from that day it happened, all the way to then. And then I was like, wow, now I'm free to find a job, which I had given, like the job that I was working at on day release, I was given to me when I was out. So I was like, I have a job already, and I'm free to do what I want. I can go and walk around the park. That's the thing now. Like sometimes I'll walk outside. Even now, I might walk out here, and there's a smell of freedom. And I've been out for over 14 years. Yeah. I still get that now. I'll still look at a tree, and I'll be like, "It's so nice that I can." I was walking in the rain the other day, and I wasn't like, "Oh shit, it's raining." I was like, "It's quite nice. I can feel the rain and just walk through here." Like even now, 14 years later, it's crazy.
I mean, it's a special thing to hear, mate. It really is.
It's an intense time. That's the thing. When you're in prison, I think maybe this is why it feels like so much longer, but partly because it is like I go into prisons now, and one thing I do notice is everyone slows everything down. It's like you have to slow down your energy. Everything is going at the pace of the officers, and you might have to sit there for 10 minutes and wait for someone to open the door for you and things like that. So I think your energy sort of
It'd probably
goes
be
down.
quite an intentional thing from them to try and ensure some uniformity, right, and try and inform some discipline.
Potentially, yeah. But then it's an intense environment as well. So that's probably the other reason why I think it feels like it's so long.
You talked about volunteering
Yeah.
as part of Duke of Edinburgh. Now, I recently spoke to a director at the Samaritans for this. Again, quite close to my heart, quite important, an incredibly important, free, amazing service that people, it was set up specifically for people that were suicidal. That was, that went back when it was, originally created by the priest. It was because he'd officiated.
I was a priest. You just ruined it. I've always loved the Samaritan, Jake.
Yeah, yeah. He'd officiated the funeral of a teenage girl who'd taken her own life, and he was like, something needs to happen here. This can't keep happening. And these people feel like they don't have anybody. I've got the police, I've got the fire engine, I've got the ambulance. I can call these people. What about when that crisis hits? You were a listener in prison.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us what that is, and just how important a role that is for people within the institution?
Yeah. So a listener is a prisoner trained by the Samaritans to essentially do what the Samaritans do. So if you're in prison, there's a phone. I think they all have it. There is a phone where you can ask at any point and you can speak to the Samaritans, and they'd let you out and you speak to a Samaritan. So for whatever reason, they think it's nice to have people trained that you can talk to. When I first heard about it, I was like, surely no one wants to speak to another prisoner, especially at that age when you're 18, 19, 20. Let's say I'm 18 at that point and a 21-year-old who's going through problems, he's not going to want to speak to me. I thought there's no way. But it is probably the most valuable thing in prisons, I would say, probably to this day as well, is the fact that someone can feel a certain way, whether it might be something trivial. It could be, I miss my daughter, or I'm just feeling low, or it could be something really, really bad. They're suicidal and they're, for this reason, or my family's just had a car crash and 2 people have died and now I want to kill myself. And, it could be all sorts like that. And it's such a big responsibility that gets put on you, the listener. Like, I remember going there the first time, hearing about it, and then being like, oh, wow, I've got to take this really seriously. That was one thing that always impressed me, is like, there was maybe 12 listeners at any one point, and they're young people who probably not as mature, they're not fully grown adults, the frontal lobe hasn't developed, but everyone would take it seriously. I don't think I ever knew, because it was confidential. If somebody told you something, you would go to the listener meeting, you would repeat it in the group.
As a debrief.
As a debrief. But you would absolutely respect that person who's spoken to you. I never once in my 3.5 years knew anyone breaking that code, which I think says a lot for those people that took it on. They took it on and they took that responsibility.
What's the greatest thing it taught you?
I think empathy. I think I realised that everyone goes through something and it's all relative. Someone's small problem was sometimes affecting them hugely, and you have to respect that. That's how that person feels.
I talk about it like your bucket's just full, and then one drop of anything, and that drop could be somebody doesn't thank you as you're driving. That drop could be something enormous, but that bucket's spilling over. Still, that bucket's spilling over. Yeah. It doesn't matter what that small thing is. It's I'm trying to teach my children exactly that. It's like it's okay to feel a certain way. You just got to try and take a step back and realize why you might feel that way. Is like recently, there's been a lot of tragedy and sad things, happening, and so for my children, I'm like trying to teach them, that flash of anger that comes to your mind is it might well be related to that, but it's like small things, they matter too, So as you say, you're there for all these people that do need you at enormously vulnerable times. So,
Yeah.
it's an incredible thing to have done. And I've got a couple of friends at the Samaritans, it's just, a wonderfully selfless thing to do, and I guess, were you doing it, you had to do it, as a form of volunteer. You didn't have to do that, but you had to do
Yeah.
a form of
Yeah,
volunteering,
and
right?
yeah, you had to do something for volunteering, and I was already a listener, so that's why I used the listener. People were painting the fences outside, not outside, but they were painting fences and stuff for their volunteering. So it just happened to be that being a listener. And one thing I think is important about that is I realised how important it is to talk, and you see the difference it makes from someone just talking through a problem. And the silences were always big for me. The training was quite good, and you'd sit there with someone, they're talking, and there's a bit of silence, and you're there going, "What do I say? What do I say? What do I say?" And you feel like you got to fill it. And they taught us just wait, leave it. And I remember a few times just sitting there going, "This is so awkward." And in my head, I'm thinking, "I need to say, I can't sit here." He's thinking, "What is this guy doing? He doesn't know what he's doing." And then suddenly, ba da 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 da, and they're off again, and they're going. And I was like, oh my God, no, it actually works. You're trying to fill it with your own thoughts and stuff, when in reality you're there to just sit there, listen, let this person offload it, and you see the huge difference it makes. Huge.
It's incredible. I truly think it's an amazingly wonderful thing. You described it as one of the most important things in prison. So, resettlement. Let's get back onto that, because I think resettlement's an important aspect of prison that isn't possibly. It's essentially, hey, let's give you some skills, qualifications, and the ability to go out and work. Yeah.
Yeah, the resettlement unit's setting you up for release. It used to be mostly volunteer jobs, so you'd go out and I suppose it's teaching you work ethic. It's getting you out there, getting you used to being outside again, because it's often people that have done a couple of years. And I think when you're that age, being in for 3 years, 3 months, it sounds small, but at that age, I think that's
such
a
a
really
big
long
percentage
time.
of your life still. Yeah.
Yeah. So getting out there, just getting used to speaking to normal people again, and working and that kind of thing. And for me, it started off, I was in a country park, filling in potholes and trimming hedges and things like that, which I really enjoyed, getting outside and doing it. Loved the manual side of it. But then I wanted to get in the kitchen, so I kept asking, "Oh, can I get a kitchen job?" They had contacts at Premier Inn and something out of Holiday Inn, maybe, making sandwiches, and I thought that's what I was going to be doing. But luckily Jamie Oliver opened a restaurant in Reading. He had his whole thing with 15, which people might have heard about, and
15 is working with 15.
15 used to be where he would get 15 apprentices every year. They were often had been in prison or going down that route, and then they would employ them, train them, and then they'd go off. And they've had some real success stories. A lot of great chefs have come through it.
Have you seen what Timpsons? Timpsons are a fantastic employer for like people that have offended.
Employment is such a big obstacle for prisoners, and if you could sort out employment for people coming out of prison, it would sort out a lot of.
Well, again, we talk about reoffence rate, 75%. It's. I won't get into the exact story, but it's about my uncle again. There were times when he thought, I'm better off in.
Yeah.
I'm better off in. I've got meals, I've got a bed, I've got, I know I've got a purpose, I've got direction, these things. And I don't want to, speak out of turn, so I won't, continue that too much more. But, so the reoffence would be a small thing, but, because it contravened or, it was just enough to go back. And he helped into a role, I could go down a big old thing of, drugs are something I'm massively against for that reason. But they should, in my mind, they should still be legalised, because he's made a criminal for, yes, sure, a choice he's made once or twice. But then, becoming an addict to heroin, people don't know what the hell that is. They don't know, and to essentially just be written off as a human being because of a couple of choices you've made that then lead into a lifestyle that then lead into, the path that he did then go down. It's unfair, decriminalisation treats that person like a person and not just the I guess result of a couple of bad choices.
We see it work in other countries. This is something I've never understood, where they decriminalise drugs, as you're saying, and it works. And then we see the prison system in Scandinavia, which has great results. I cannot understand why we don't just follow it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, I'd actually love to speak to somebody that's knowledgeable about this, to talk to them about, taxation and, could this be a good idea? And, why isn't it a good idea? If I'm an idiot and full of shit, tell me that I'm full of shit and here's the reasons why. But again, from a human element, it's like, it doesn't make sense to me. And again, I've not touched anything and I wouldn't, it's not for me. But why don't we address key, like reoffence rates for, among addicts? It's going to be enormous, because why they've got something they've got to feed, like how do we support these people? So supporting into jobs is incredible. So Jamie had started this. Jamie, I know him. Jamie Oliver had started this. This thing. He just opened up the restaurant in Reading, and
so it wasn't a 15. It was an Italian restaurant, but so we'd tried to get into 15, which would have meant me taking a train to London, but it wasn't going to work logistically, and they didn't want to take a serving prisoner. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
But then they were opening the Italian, so he had this big chain. It ended up being loads and loads of restaurants before they imploded. But at this point, this is like restaurant number 3, and they were making all the food fresh, and it was a great place. And so I kept pestering them. You have to do everything through applications in prison. You can, but you kind of need to put it in writing and put it in, and then they'll speak to you about it. And I kept saying, can you see if I can get a job at this place? Can you see if you can get hold of them at Jamie's Italian? And then one day, I think it was only like 2 days before the restaurant opened, I knew when it was going to open, or when the training was going to start. And I was like, thinking, oh no, it's obviously nothing's going to happen. And then the head chef came in. They were like, oh, this guy is going to come in and chat to you. And he's a good friend now. He's an American guy called Ian, who he came in and just spoke at me, to be honest with you. He just said...
got an American trait? I joke.
His brother has been in trouble in America, and I think that's kind of what drove him. And he just spoke about how kitchens are great, all the different cultures and countries and people and things coming together, and it's like you can come be a part of the team. And he very much took me under his wing, actually. A lot of people didn't know I was from prison, and I'd go in and it just sort of tucked me under the radar a little bit, and it taught me great work ethic. He used to get me in the kitchen. Everyone would be in at 8. He'd get me in at 7, and I was like, oh, I've got to get up an hour earlier. And he'd get me in, he'd make me iron my chef whites. No one else had to. And I was kind of like, I used to do it in the unit, actually. I'd iron my chef whites, and I'd go in with it on a hanger and walk to the restaurant and put it on. Be there before everyone else. I'd get ahead, and then...
do you know what that says to me is belonging?
Yeah.
Belonging. You're proud of, like, this means something. This is more than a uniform.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd never thought about it like that, but yeah, you're right. And then for me, it was just teaching me, I don't know, good work ethic. And I'd see people then coming in at 8:05 and buttoning up this thing, and I was like, oh, I see, like I'm, feel good, I'm getting ahead, I'm, so it just taught me that. And he sort of, over that next, it must have been 10, 11 months I was working there, and he sort of took me through like literally every section of it, and I'd be working this bit and this bit, and I suppose the sense of belonging that I talk about, I felt like I belonged. And once I was released, I remember feeling really nervous asking him if I could keep the job. I was like a month away from getting released. I was like, I'm going to get released, am I allowed to keep the job? It was like it was not even a question. I was like, oh wow, I was so nervous about asking. So I was able to move into Reading, which was far enough away from where I grew up, but still close. And then I had this job, and I was going in and working. And you talk about a belonging. I remember once my family visiting in Reading, and we're by the river there, and someone phones me up from the restaurant, says, someone's sick, can you come in? I was like, yep. Left my family. I was like, sorry, I've got to go. So they go off and get the train home. I go get my whites, and I go in and work. And I probably wouldn't do that now, but that's how much I felt like that I belonged in that area. Like that was my purpose, was to be there. And yeah, it was a great foundation for then what came.
Again, I guess you've gone from prison then into there's some semblance of structure. I've worked in a kitchen. I know it's very ordered. It's incredibly, you have your place, you have what you do these things, and you do it well, and it's disciplined.
Yeah.
So you've not, you've you've not lost that. That's what I think a lot of people talk about when they do come out of prison is, and the army is, or any military, you lose that semblance of structure and order and what's right and authority and all of these things, and you're just expected just go on then, get on with it. It's like how so you've got that as a structure. So how long were you at James Italian?
So I worked there in total for about 5 years. So I then moved into Reading. I was there for maybe 11 months. And then I wanted a fresh start. So I was actually going to follow Ian into London, and then he left the company. So they knew I wanted to leave, and because I wanted a fresh start, I was known as the kid from prison, and because for so long they'd asked me to go out for drinks, and I'd be like, I can't. I didn't say, I can't because I'm going back to prison now. I used to just be like, oh no, I can't, another time. So they just thought I was antisocial and, quiet, and most of them. So then that continued. Even when I was out, I was kind of out of that circle. So I wanted to move just to have a fresh start, and I was thinking London will be great. Then when he didn't, he ended up leaving the company, and they said the MD came and spoke to me, and he said he knew where I'd come from, and I think for them it was quite a success story for them. They've taken a prisoner.
Again, I've been a PR man, for 18 years. That's a story. That's a great story.
Well, they never did. Like I tell about Jamie Oliver, Jamie's company has never even acknowledged that actually. So up to them. But
I mean, obvious question: did you ever have anything to do with him?
Kind of. So in that time I worked for them, I did go and cook for 2 of his TV shows behind the scenes, like for him and the crew. So the first time was at his house in Essex, and me and another chef, and he'd come and cook breakfast and that kind of thing. And then I did another one of those on the Southend Pier for his show that he did there. So I've been around him in that sense. He's never, as far as I know, he doesn't know who I am. I'm sure he's probably heard the story because it's been out there in every news outlet. But he's very much that's what people think sometimes, and this is why, I say Jamie Oliver's restaurants, and people say, they think it's Jamie Oliver's gone in and given me the job and stuff when it was his company, and he's very much a brand, I think, and has people calling the shots and pulling the strings, and probably has his own PR department.
1,000,000% has a lot of people just like me that do an awful lot.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, in fact, as I bought your book, I was thinking, how many homes is Jamie Oliver in? It's gonna be like, you think about your mates' houses that you go to. Most people have one, right? Yeah. We're talking like cookbooks doing well, and you're doing fantastically. When I'm so chuffed to see it. I genuinely cookbooks are a great way to infiltrate somebody's house. Potentially an awful lot of people's houses.
Yeah.
So.
Not many people do that. I mean, Jamie Oliver's...
Of course not. No. What was the stat you said earlier on? You said it was
out of more than 5,000 books, out of more than 5,000 cookbooks released in a year, only 80 sold more than 500 copies. Jamie Oliver is like above anything else. Then you've got things like Pinch of Nom or Board of Lunch. So those two I know will sell thousands. Beyond that, I'd say there's a massive gap, and then there's people like me.
So did you leave Jamie's Italian to then start your own business, or did you go anywhere in between?
After Jamie's Italian, I started. Do you know what? I was going around different places, trying to find somewhere else to. They started buying things in. It got massive. It wasn't the company I started with, and I wanted to leave. It was the right time to leave, and I was trying to find somewhere else. And I just felt like I didn't belong there. Part of me felt like I did beforehand. I was like, oh no, have I just got lucky by landing here? And then it is an interesting story. This is probably not necessarily one for the podcast. I don't know if you want to put it in or not. But I went to this recruitment. This is just an interesting story. Went to this recruitment place once, and I was like, told him everything. I've always been very upfront about my story, and it's usually helped rather than hindered, actually. Probably because I'm honest about it. And this guy says, oh, do you know what? I've got this job. I don't know who to place in it, but you sound like you might be perfect. And then he just told me a place to be. It had to be at the M11 services near Stansted Airport at this time and park in this place. So I parked there, and then this black van comes up, and his hand comes out the window, and ushers me along to follow him, and I was like, all right, follow this van all the way into the Essex countryside, like pulls over into a lay-by. I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on? This guy jumps out, he says, I'll jump in the back. There's a young, pretty girl there, so I'm like, hello. And then he gets back in the van, he goes, right, we're going to go into the house now. He goes, it's Keith Flint. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, Keith Flint.
I didn't.
Prodigy.
So I didn't know the name. I was like, who the fuck is that? And then the door's open, and then this Keith Flint comes out of his mohawk things, and I'm like, oh. I don't know why they were so secretive about it. And he was basically buying his local pub in the village there, and he wanted. It was so funny. I went into this room. The girl was going to be the general manager, and they got me around this table, and I had a Bugs Bunny with a shotgun pointing at my head. I'm in this gothic room, and they're all just on the other side of this big table grilling me. And then they all leave, come back, and they say, "Oh, you would like to give you the job." I was like, "Oh, I don't want to." Usually, you'd cook and stuff, if you're going for a chef job. And I was going to go into his pub and create the menu, and I was going to live in. And at that time, I had a bit of debt as well. Like being a chef, you're not earning loads, just to try and keep myself above board. And they were offering like probably about £10,000 extra a year than what I was earning, plus living accommodation, so I wouldn't be paying my rent. I was like, this is a no-brainer. It's going to give me a Range Rover as a company car. I was going to create my own menus for 20 people in a little pub. He was sound as well. He was going, I like motorbikes. He was like, oh, I own a motorbike racing team. You can come with me here. And I'm like, this is mad. So I was going to do that. And then I went back to Jamie's and gave him my notice. And then the MD, who I'd known for a number of years, came and basically said, listen, I really want to keep you. We've built you from here to here. This is where we're going. Obviously, he didn't see the future. And he sold it to me and said I could go anywhere. So I chose to stay within the company. Oh, wow. So I never actually went ahead, which actually that didn't end up very good either with his pub.
Well, I mean,
but obviously we're talking about Samaritans and suicide, and he did. Not going to say that.
No, to take his own life.
Yeah. So yeah, very sad. But yeah, that's just the fun part, the interesting part of that story. But when it came to leave again, I was like, no, this isn't actually for me.
Well, there's a statistic that I always, as an employer, kind of thought about. If somebody's leaving, if somebody says that they're going to leave, 80% of people, if you offer them more money, 80% of people leave within the next 6 months anyway.
That's interesting.
80%. Now, it might be higher or lower than, but it's there or thereabouts. Leave anyway because they'd already made the decision that they were going to leave. Yeah. So therefore, you're going to have to offer them an incredible amount more. It's probably not going to be financial. That's not the reason that they're staying or not. It's for some other life reason. Yeah. So I never ever tried to keep somebody. If somebody said, "Rich, here's my notice," I was like, "Awesome, you're doing the right thing for you."
Yeah.
And I'll support you.
That makes sense. Well, it sucks for them though, because that's sometimes a tactic to get a pay rise.
It's like, well, it didn't work. It could be. I mean, I always said to people, it's like, if you think you will, if you want more money, talk to me. Make that case. Like, talk to me. Just like, let's not kind of beat around the bush. Like, I'll always be honest with you. You be honest with me.
I suppose if someone had that conversation and you said no, then that would then push them out anyway. So you'd be a similar sort of thing.
But it's never why people stay. So. It was unsurprising then that you left at some point, right?
Yeah, I think it was only another 3-4 months and then I was done. And
you are in that 80%.
Yeah. And I had no idea where to go, and it was very much thinking of, do you know what, I've done some dinner parties for people and they liked it. I'm just going to start advertising myself for that kind of thing and catering. Didn't really have a plan for it. And so I left, started doing that. I actually got quite lucky. I got a few, where I live now is a quite wealthy area. There's a lot of people that do want that sort of thing. So I ended up doing a lot of barbecues and events and some weddings and things. And I was able to do agency work in the week to keep me propped up. That's the good thing about hospitality is there's always, you need staff everywhere. You always have done, always will do, unless there's a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I realised, you know what, maybe 9 months into doing that, I was like, you know what, I need something that's just going to keep me going. Like, I need a full-time something on my own, and decided to get a food truck. Just on a whim, I was just like, I'm going to get a food truck. Took out a loan, bought a food truck, kitted it out, got out on the high street and started selling food. And it was a great fun.
Was it a hard process, kind of like from a bureaucracy perspective? And...
Do you know what, it was actually pretty straightforward. And the hard bit was the food truck kept breaking down. The cars I had would break down, or the food truck would have like problems with the plumbing, and where I'd stored it, I had to store it like an hour round trip away, and like going up there and getting it. And
What kind of food was it?
I was doing
So street food, wasn't it?
Yeah, on the lunch times I was doing pulled chicken, firecracker brisket, pulled pork, falafels, which I was making fresh, which ended up being the most popular thing as people kept coming, and then just salads like a Moroccan salad and a couscous and stuff like that, and some sauces, and it was nice, good lunch, and it was like bargain as well. I was not making as much money as I should have. It was okay. It was, but the good thing for me was that it led on to other things. So from that, I ended up with the X Factor contract. So I ended up.
See, I've seen that, in the potted history of your life. I'm like, that's a big jump. Like, how do you go to X Factor from, street food man?
Well, I had quite a lot of people come into the food truck, and then I think I did really good food. Yeah. I genuinely think it was probably the best food you'd find from a street food truck. I always find it's the same thing. It's always baps and wraps, and I never find what I want. I can go to a food festival, and I'm usually just picking the best of what I think is, I don't know. I think they're trying to do their own thing without thinking about what other people want, but that's another story. And I think I did something really good where people were excited to come and get it, and people would talk about it. And I was doing a lot of events and stuff, and it was one of the producers' mum had some of my food, and then decided, do you want to come and cook in the house for 3 months? I was like, yeah. And then the food truck also led on to, I did something at Windsor Castle for the DV, and then ended up doing a lot of events there. So I was going there every few months and cooking for events. Once I had my food truck in the grounds of Windsor Castle, and the Queen rode past on a horse, and I was like, nah.
But you must be thinking, like, what is life? What is life? Like, like that's.
But I think that's been quite common. Like I was cooking for celebrities as well, like reality stars or footballers. Like Rio Ferdinand is like my favourite one because I grew up as like in Man United, and so I've had a lot of moments like that where I've been like, yeah, what is life? How has it turned into this? But yeah, it's quite mad.
I mean, choices you've made and effort that you've put in the right places and all these things, and some amount of, like, are you a luck person? Are you the harder you work, the luckier you get?
Yeah, I think so. I think luck obviously plays a part, but I also think, when I'm telling my story, you're telling the fun points and you're telling just these bits, and what you miss out is all that stuff in between. Like when I was for the food truck, for example, and cooking for those weddings and events, I was working, I think I'd go sometimes 2 full months without a single day off, and it would be all day every day, and sometimes I'd be at that food truck cleaning it and stuff, and then prepping food, and I'd sleep. I had a night once where I was doing a wedding. I was only in a small 1-bed flat, and I've had the whole kitchen area, like pots and pans and food everywhere, and I didn't sleep. Like, my girlfriend goes to bed, she wakes up, she's like, have you even been to bed? I was like, no, I've been up all night. Like, I'd literally go sleepless nights just to make a few. It wasn't about money. It's never been for me about, I need the money, I'll do this. It was always for me about building something, and that's essentially why I am where I am, I think.
Well, yeah, because nobody ever sees, nobody's with you on the last mile. Nobody sees the end of that journey.
Yeah, definitely.
Nobody sees the late nights that, as a business owner you put in. Nobody sees the bloody tears and the, the stress and, and all these things. And, the government makes a decision to, let's hike national insurance contributions. Oh, cheers for that. Nice. Yeah. So what happens to pay rises? What happens to, new employees? Oh, no, don't worry. It's like nobody sees the stresses. They see the successes. And it is, undoubtedly you've got to put yourself through it. Like, I think I was told once, you've got to live like most people won't, so you can live them like most people can't. And that sounds excessively capitalistic, and the person that told me that is excessively capitalistic. But you've got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions and be comfortable with being in those uncomfortable positions, and just know that it's going to come right, you hope. Right? So then you can be some idiot sat in a lovely room speaking to somebody, about your life. But it doesn't just happen, And sometimes it can seem all too often, especially to younger people, and we talk about that malcontent or discontentment, and young people not necessarily knowing where they're going. Social media hasn't helped because it makes everything look easy. It makes, that person's 19, he's got a Bugatti. It's like, you don't know the story. Either he's the son of a
Yes.
billionaire, or everything just seems like quick and easy, and let me grab it, and oh my god, I'm not succeeding, and comparison is the thief of joy, and I'm not
Yeah.
succeeding like that person is. And I mean, in your world, that must be quite big as well. You're putting in all these hours, and then you see some like you see somebody maybe blow up, and their social media's gone so well, and
Yeah.
you're like, why not me? Did you ever have that kind of moment?
I understand exactly what you mean. Have I ever had those moments? Not, I suppose yes, but at the same time, I've always been quite big on focus on my own journey, and I think you have to celebrate your own. I'm not big on celebrate. I often don't celebrate enough.
It's hard,
But
isn't it?
yeah, people tell me I should, but I do think, in a way, I do in my head. I celebrate myself personally when I have successes, and I think that's what it's about. You just said one of my favourite phrases: comparison is the thief of joy. It's so true. You can't compare yourself, in that sense.
You possibly shouldn't. Are you proud of yourself?
Am I proud of myself? Yeah, I am. Yeah. I think I don't sit back and think about it too often. I think certainly the last 5 years, I'm very proud, yeah. Because things like the recipes, for example, I've always wanted to write recipe books and didn't really know how it was going to happen. And you feel like you're hitting your head on brick walls a lot of the time and hitting into obstacles, and things aren't going to go your way. And, years ago, I forgot about this until recently. I messaged the local paper, and I was doing recipes for them. It's just a free paper that goes around, and I was like, oh yeah, they said yeah, of course they did. They just
It's content.
Yeah.
They need and want content. Here we go.
I don't think they printed it. I think it was just online as well.
Yeah.
They didn't even print it. They just put it online. And
Chuck about 16 ads around it, and
funny thing is, I could have been doing it on social media then. I don't know why I didn't. I think maybe it was alien to me. I didn't really know how to, and I suppose I saw the successful people as being people who were writing books and doing stuff in print rather than doing stuff online.
How did you go about building yours? Because I mean, you've got a considerable social media following now. So how did you go about building that?
So social media started for me mostly. I used to do like my events, and so when I was doing the catering, I'd put stuff on there. I would cook for celebrities, they would tag it, and I would get a bit of traction.
Wow, okay, so they'd tag it in.
Yeah, so I had a few thousand followers, and people would, they got me business. Like I cooked for someone from The Only Wears Essex, and when she posted a couple of times, suddenly for the next year, people were like booking me because I'd cooked for her. So I'd had this bit of a
What
following.
you doing, like parties for these people? And things
Yeah,
like that,
usually it'd be like a barbecue or a dinner party. Because I already had that bit of a following there, when the pandemic happened. So I'll tell you now, like leading up to the pandemic, everything was blowing up, the catering side of things. I had a new contract at a museum around the corner here, which was going to see me doing up to 500 people. That was going to be huge. I had this contract in this office where I was cooking for 80 people Monday to Friday, doing lunches. I had all these events, dinner parties, barbecues, all this sort of stuff going on, lots of it for these celebrities as well. I was going to open somewhere. I had someone that was helping me find a premises and get investment and things like that. It was all going ahead. Then the pandemic happened and everything overnight disappeared. All these events started cancelling. There was obviously nothing going to go on it there. The office closed down, so no one was in there working. So I was like, wow, it went from 100 to 0 straight away. And I think that's where the resilience came in from my time in prison. There were times where I wanted to quit doing the cooking. There were times where I wanted to quit working towards the Duke of Edinburgh's award. And at times I was shown the path to carry on, and it made me realise, oh no, there's benefits when you want to quit, you carry on. And so I ended up cooking this happened just before the pandemic, just to get me a bit more cash. I took on this job cooking for this couple, extremely wealthy, in their own home, just doing a dinner once a week. They knew that I'd lost all the other work, so he said, oh, well, if you want, just come twice a week. I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
Isn't it funny? Those people don't know necessarily how incredible they are in that moment for that kind of, it's like, just double my income. Like, just on a whim. It's like, I'll come twice then. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that guy is, he's a really cool guy, actually.
For me, that was, I had a client and they said, Rich, can I just pay 6 months up front? And I could cry now thinking about it. Like, Yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, we've done that a few times, mate. Yeah, it's like it changes your life.
Yeah.
Changes your life. Like, just that client that obviously you're working towards it anyway. That might be another client that might not happen. Would have been fine, but just they went. Can I just pay 6 months up? It's a bit of a pain having to every month pay you. It's like that's trust in you. That's it's a loyalty. It's and more to the point, it's money that they you know they're not going to miss necessarily because they're going to spend it anyway. So, mate, phenomenal. Just like absolutely wonderful moment.
Yeah. So I started cooking. I started cooking for them. Then I started filming. So I was just like, film one while I cooked. I think the first thing was seared scallops with truffle and porcini. Like,
I mean, now you've made me very hungry.
yeah. Oh,
That sounds amazing.
This was like my signature starter when I used to do dinner parties, and it's cost. Depends how much you want to spend on truffle, but you're talking £100 just to feed 2 people with this little starter. They used to sit on their laps and watch TV. It's quite mad. It was so bizarre to me, actually. I was like, this is a great house as well. And so I did that, and then I realised, oh, people enjoyed watching that. I'll do another thing and another thing. And then the girlfriend of this guy at the time, she was watching my social media, and she would ask me, like, can you make this? Can you make that? And then I'd film it. And then one of the things was a chocolate orange cheesecake. So she said, oh, I've seen this. Can you make a version? So I did it, and I filmed it and I made it for her. And then at this point, it was just photos on Instagram. It wasn't reels. I think TikTok was probably not even called TikTok at this point. I posted this photo, the chocolate orange cheesecake, and then I posted the videos in stories. So you'd see 10, 15-second clips of each step. And it went crazy. I didn't post it. I was like, that's not chefy enough. It was a no-bake one. Like, I'm a professional chef. I'm baking a cheesecake if I'm going to make one. And I posted it, and it went viral. I think it got me like over a few weeks, got me 20,000 followers, which is huge. And the best thing was people started making it. Like, all the other recipes, people just looking at it, they're not going to make it. Now I'm suddenly seeing hundreds a day of people sending me photos of them making this cheesecake, because everyone's at home during lockdown, they're baking. So it was the most amazing thing. And then I think from there it was a bit like what else can I do that people are going to make? And it just started and it snowballed. And then the good thing for me was this guy that I was cooking for. I basically in the in-between period of the lockdowns, I did a barbecue for another client who was also very wealthy, who had done stuff for before. And she asked, oh, what have you been doing? I said, oh, I've just been cooking for this guy. Oh, you do that, do you? Can you come cook for us every Sunday? I was like, yeah. Then, because at this point things were still shut as well. It wasn't the same as before. And then her friend heard about it, and she said, oh, can you come and cook for us 2 days a week? I ended up with 5 days a week working as a private chef for 3 families. It was crazy. So I ended up being able to keep myself afloat during that period where everything disappeared and the support wasn't there. I was a limited company, so there wasn't, what was the support? I think the only thing they did was months down the line, they did the low interest loan. But, people that were self-employed were taking furlough and getting wages back and all sorts, weren't they? So I had to keep myself up, and that's how I ended up doing it, is doing cooking for those. The only place I could really film recipes was at the guy I said about first. The other 2 both saw my content. They both said, oh, you can film here, but there's always people around, and people don't realise when you're filming a recipe that you're not just going, oh, grab those ingredients, film it. Like, it's quite a big process. Like, I need to take all that time, get everything ready, and yeah. So this guy that I was talking about, he actually, after that first year, he bought the place next door just so I had my own kitchen to be in. So the most beautiful place, sort of white stuff, all the best equipment, Gaggenau ovens and Gaggenau induction hob, and high ceilings, windows all around, high LED lighting. The perfect place to film recipes. So what I would then do is, he broke up from his girlfriend, so it was just him and sometimes his son, and I'd cook for them and I'd leave their food there and do whatever I'm doing, but then I'd film a recipe and I'd just pick a new one every twice a week, and I'd film it and put it out, and that's how that went. Then recycling older recipes as well meant I was posting 3-4 recipes every week as reels came out, and I'm getting my old recipes, putting that into reels, and suddenly I was there at the beginning. It's like everything, it went like that, and it's subtle and it plateaus. But because I was there at that height of Instagram Reels becoming a thing, you can grow and grow and grow. So remember, I did compare myself at one point because I had 60,000 followers. I was looking at others that were doing similar, and they were on like 150, and I was like, how are they on 150? My content's better than his. And then I just had a year. So then I hit 100, then it went up to maybe 150 or something. This is by the end of 2022, something like that. 21, 22, 22. Then I think it's 2020. Sorry, trying to get my years. 2023, I think it was actually. There wasn't a single day where I had less than 1,000 followers in a day. And that was just from consistently posting content in my style. And it was just going up and up and up and up. And then yeah, TikTok, same. TikTok and Instagram both blown up. Website getting 60,000 hit. I don't know what it gets now, actually. I haven't looked in a long time, but 60,000 people viewing it every month. So yeah.
So it wasn't actually your story as somebody that had, been to prison or been to youth events. Like it wasn't that. It was the content that spoke for itself.
The stories helped, and I think sometimes I've posted about it a few times, and only recently actually I posted one recently I'd never done before, which was a series of photos, and old blurry ones, and there's one of me in prison, which I'm lucky to have, and then it goes through and it tells a story in 20 photos, and that has randomly, you don't see it as much anymore. It's a lot harder to go viral, I think, but that's got me, I think, maybe 15,000 followers just from that. So that does help. I think when people see that story, you buy into it.
But the majority of your content was just consistent, good content.
Food. Oh, yes, just consistent. 3-4 recipes every single week in the same style, recipes that people are actually making. I think that's the thing that I've done well, is often I've taken recipes that are very difficult to make. So Portuguese custard tarts is a big one of mine that I think. Them. They're so good. And if you find any recipe online, they take hours. There's a lot of steps, a lot of processes. And then what I've done is created a version with, I'm very good at simplifying. I'm very good at cutting out. I've always been very good at that. So like same with if I'm typing something out, I've helped other people create their own content as well. And then they often want to tell me, oh no, I need to do it this way. And they'll do what they want to do. And I'm always like, you're losing people. You can cut out this and this and it. I'm very good at spotting irrelevant stuff in day-to-day life as well. Yeah. Probably on the spectrum. I've often thought so, but it helps.
Well, let's bring it back around. I mentioned really early on that we'd come back around to the mood board.
Yes.
This morning, you went onto This Morning. A producer had followed you, seen your content, and you'd always said that you wanted to be on. Take us from there. Take us from.
I'll take you to the first time I did that mood board was, I think, maybe 2016. I'd moved into a new flat with a girlfriend. I'd only been renting rooms at that point, so it was a big step. I'm in my own place. And I was like, right, where am I going to take these things? I created this mood board and I'd printed out things. And at the bottom, I put the things that weren't as important to me. The wealth, the money, the business, the cars, the house. Then I put family, very important. Traveling, important to me. Seeing the world. And then over here, I'd put things like cookbooks. A cookbook. I want to write a book about my life at some point. I want to mentor. I want to, go into prisons, go into schools, do all that sort of thing. But then in one bit, it's just a little square in the middle, and it was my face photoshopped over Gina DeCampo cooking on This Morning. And I'd had this up in my flat, and whenever my girlfriend's friends came over, I'd always hide it, because I was like a bit embarrassed. I'd turn it around, didn't anyone see it? And but I used to look at it every day, and I was like, it's a funny thing, because I think in hindsight you go, that is so powerful, because everything on that board, and most of that has come true. And at the time, it doesn't. You think it's instantaneous. It's not. It takes years. And, at that point, why is anyone going to ask me to cook on This Morning? But then as time goes by, and I end up doing what I was just talking about, I end up doing the recipes on social media and building a social media account. At this point, people know my story. They know me for food. They're creating my recipes. And it was the Duke of Edinburgh as well. I suppose it was my story that helped, because when Prince Philip died, I did a lot of media all around the world. And some of my interviews were seen by probably hundreds of millions of people. And I ended up going on this morning via Zoom, doing like a talking chat. And then afterwards I was like, can I come and cook on the show? And they were like, oh no, actually, sorry, we're not having any new people because of COVID. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was worth a punt anyway. Anyway, I did see that the producers had followed me, 2 of them. I think someone had tagged the other one in one of my videos, and it said in their bios, I was like, oh, they're following me. And then I was cooking with my sister. She was helping me film a video. And I said to her at the time, I was like, I'm going to go on this morning soon. She was like, oh, really, when? And I was like, well, I don't know. She's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I know I'm going to go on it. Oh, but when are you going on it? I don't know. They haven't asked me. I know I'm going to go on it. And I think that's what the law of attraction is a lot of the time. It's about believing it. You have to believe it in your own head before something becomes true. Slightly delusional, maybe. But then I got this phone call from a producer. I remember exactly where I was, and I saw the phone. I think maybe she'd organised, so I think I knew I was going to get a phone call. I saw it come up. I was like, right. Speak to her, and she says, oh, would you like to come and cook on this morning? So I was like, I already know what I want to cook. And then I was like, it's actually on a mood board, I told her. And this mood board at this point was under my bed somewhere. I hadn't had it up for a couple of years. And she said, oh, can you bring it in? And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I took on this mood board, and they didn't know if they were actually going to speak about it. I think it was up to the presenters. And I had it next to me, and then he mentioned it, Philip Schofield did, and I picked it up, and that's it. They zoomed in on that picture, and it's a very surreal moment. It's very cool to have that on TV, and I think even for me, if I ever get to a point where I have a down moment, I'm like, oh, it's not going as it should be, and I have to kind of remind myself, like, the work it took to get to all those different places, but to get to that point where I've stuck my picture on there and I've really wanted to achieve that, I literally did. And then I think I've cooked on there another 4 times since. So it's a really surreal thing for me. It just shows to me the power of the subconscious mind, and that's why I'm constantly trying to envision where I want to go next and things like that.
You just made the next question the easiest question in the world to ask. Where do you want to go next?
I think that it's a hard question to answer, in the sense I have ideas. I always like to keep it close to my chest until it's actually on its way.
If you were writing doing a new mood board,
yeah,
what's on there?
Right, publishing. I love the cookbooks. So far, it's going extremely well, and I would love to continue that. The way Jamie Oliver has released, I don't know, 30 cookbooks or something, I would love to continuously write cookbooks. I'd love to explore the world and write recipes for people that will actually take that book and make it at home. So far, so good. So it's about continuing.
That seems to be such a big
journey.
thing for you. It's not just about fancy food. It's about food that I'm going to cook.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful thing.
It goes back to what I said about when I saw people making the recipes. There's that feeling of, like, if I've made something, then someone's making it, and then they're proud enough to send you a photo, and they're happy. And the stories I hear from all walks of life, whether it's kids cooking, autistic kids sometimes who won't eat anything, and suddenly their parents are saying, oh no, they're picking this out of the book. People saying that they've fallen out of love with cooking, and now they found these recipes and they're cooking, and all sorts of things like that, which just that makes me want to keep going forward. So definitely books. The building of social media, I suppose that just, to me, so people use social media for various things. To me, social media is a tool to connect with people, but also to push my books. That to me is the fun part. I have quite a bit of time over going into next year. I think is a unique opportunity for me where I have a bit of cash and things are flowing nicely. So I want to set something up. I have a few ideas, and those are currently on. I have a whiteboard in my bedroom, and I've got those, more of a brainstorm than a vision board, but I've got those on there, and it's about picking one and
how do you reflect on being the lad from where you're from and the people that you'd hang around with then, and then becoming well known and building the brand, I guess, that you're building around yourself? Is there a degree of, like, that doesn't even feel like me anymore, or like
I think it's growth. I think it's about growing, so it does feel like me, but it feels like I've grown massively. When I look back at where I grew up and Some of the people, there's a few of them, I'll see them on social media and you see what they're up to, and some are fine. I don't want to put everyone in the same box, but there's a few that have passed away from various things, whether it be drugs or other
the lifestyle,
accidents
right?
and things. Yeah, lifestyle. Others that I'm surprised are not there. Others that are still in prison or in that sort of cycle still. So when I look back,
is it weird for you to think that you're like well known from where you started? Do you think it's weird for your mates to see?
I never really thought about it. No one ever makes too big a deal of it.
Yeah.
So they'll just say things like, oh, my cousin's best friend knows that I know you and they're really excited. Can you do this for them? Can you just send them a voice note? Can you da-da-da? That's quite nice. When I had my best friend from back home, I don't keep in contact with too many people, actually. He's the only one that I'm in regular contact with. And he phoned me up a couple of years ago, 2 years ago maybe, and he said, I'm seeing this new girl and her sister's a massive fan. Can you just, I think he wanted me to send a birthday message or something. And I was like, that was so nice, I can help him out like that. But yeah, other than that, no one's really made like a big deal with it.
You're also a trustee at Liberty Kitchen.
Yeah, so so over the years, I get asked, as soon as my story goes out in the media, I get so many requests to go on into schools, into prisons, that kind of thing, all around the country. And it's hard to say no. I've always found it quite difficult. I want to say yes to everyone. I don't, if a prison says, can you come and speak to our lads? And I have to say no. So I don't like having to say no. So I was approached to be a trustee of this charity, and I thought, you know what, this is a good way to put all my energy, rather than just dotting around different places, put all my energy into one place. And yeah, so I've become a trustee at Liberty Kitchen, which is based in Pentonville in London. I'll go in there every couple of months and cook. But beyond that, like, they're being taught to cook every day. They're creating food for prison events, outside events. They're making food for a street food stall. Some of them, when they're released, will go and work on the street food stall as well. And that is proven to be really important for them, just to bridge that gap between prison and employment. Gives them something that's quite important, is them having a reference to take to an employer, and it gives them that reference. They've said, oh, I've worked on this street food stall, and so that helps. It gives them a bit of cash, and yeah, those little things. So it's an important charity. It's in the early stages, actually. It's fairly new, and it's got ambitions to expand around the prison system, especially in London.
Where can people find out more about that?
Liberty Kitchen website, social media. I don't think they're too active on it. But there's, I should know whether they did have a street food stall at Bloomsbury. They've now got 2 more up in North London, but I'm not sure which ones they are at the moment. It's all quite new. I need to find out. I need to go down myself.
Can I ask you some fun questions? Because I'm very aware we've been talking for a long time now. What's the last thing you cooked for yourself at 11 p.m. at night? Like, you're like, oh God, I just,
That's normal dinner time for me.
Is that dinner time?
Yeah, it is a lot of the time. Yesterday, I do you know what? I don't, because I'm constantly making new recipes, I'll only really do my other ones if it's 4 people and stuff like that. Last night, I had the things in. I did the prawn firecracker stir fry. So I was like, oh, I've got it all in. I was going to go live on TikTok, and I felt quite tired. I've had a really busy few weeks, and I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to cook it for myself without the pressures of a camera and talking to people. So yeah, that's the last thing I cooked.
Out of 10?
10. Yeah, even whoever wrote that book is a genius.
Go-to takeaway?
I know this doesn't count for a lot of people, but Nando's. Deliveroo, yeah. It doesn't even travel that well, but it's just my go-to.
What's your order?
Medium chicken thighs, chips, Peronaise, macho peas, halloumi, and the greatest thing on their menu. Once I left a fine dining restaurant before dessert to go and get the Nando's chocolate cake. Chocolate, it's called.
God, have you even had it?
But it needs to come from the fridge.
Right.
And oh my God, it's so good. I tell everyone.
Okay,
like, I didn't even know they did desserts.
No, I didn't. So there you go. Death row meal.
Death row meal.
You must have
right.
thought about this quite a
Oh,
lot.
I thought about it. See,
And also, you need to go on that bloody, what's that comedy podcast with James Acaster?
is it off menu?
Off menu, yeah.
I've
yeah.
never listened, but people always tell me to.
Yeah. So I'm going to absolutely rip them. I'm going to get there before they do. Go on. Starter, main, dessert.
Right, so I can give you two. I always give my version and people slate me for it, but this is because I think of things too logically. And like I said earlier, I think I'm on the spectrum of it. I always do. I take things very very literal. So if I give you my literal version that people go crazy at, is I would have some crusty, freshly baked bread with Lurpak. This is me thinking I'm actually
I'm
going
going to move away from the mic because I'll just make hungry noises. So
This is me thinking if I'm genuinely on death row and I'm dying tomorrow, I want some freshly baked, crusty bread. I want Lurpak and I want to eat that. Then I want Peking duck I just want the crispiest bits of about 10 ducks. And then the pancakes, bit of hoisin sauce, bit of cucumber, bit of spring onion. Boom. Then for my dessert, I'm having butterscotch Angel Delight, about 6 packets and about 3 pints of milk. See, I know the ratio. If I was giving you another one, like a death row meal, like, you know how people being like, what's your favourite food, that kind of thing, I would go for the scallops I spoke about earlier, seared scallop. I have to cook them. I love scallops.
you ain't cooking.
When I go to restaurants, I see scallops and me. I'm like, yes. Unless you're going to like a really fine restaurant, they'd never do it any justice. So I'd get a nice sear on those scallops, nice big, good quality. I'd make the creamy truffle and porcini sauce that I used to make. It's so good. So I'd have that for starter. I would have the best quality Wagyu or Kobe beef, like sirloin with some triple cooked duck fat chips. But I love a good steak, and when it's good quality, it's so good. I'd turn those triple cooked chips into truffle chips as well. So we're going double truffle. I didn't realise I liked it that much.
Double truffling.
Then dessert, I would go.
You're stinking.
Dessert. Oh, I don't know. Maybe like. I used to have a really big sweet tooth. I still do, actually.
I mean, you just said that you want 6 packets of Angel Delight.
Yeah. Every so often, I don't eat it loads, but every so often when I want a bit of nostalgia. Actually, I put a version in this, you know. It's probably the hardest recipe in the book because it's like working with sugar, but I just wanted, that to me is comfort. So I wanted to make an actual version. But I think, I don't know, maybe some sort of cheesecake.
Yeah. I mean, it's a winner. And as you said, it did well for you. What was it? Chocolate orange recipe.
Like a Terry's chocolate orange one, yeah. And there's a version in, not that one, in Speedy Weeknight Meals. That's what I like to do when things go well. I like to, in the books, I like to give little nods to things, little nods to the time in prison or the time on TV or, you know, stuff like that.
What's the one kitchen tool you couldn't do without?
A silicone spatula. Simple, but it's much better than a spoon. It's just, there's something nice about. And a good frying pan, good knives, all that sort of thing.
I asked before chatting to you, I put on Instagram, you know, has anybody got any questions? And just before starting, I saw one from Claire Graham, and she said, would you change your past, or do you think it's shaped the person you are?
I would definitely not change my past. I think it has shaped me, and I think I'm very happy about the person I've become. I'm very proud of the person I've become. I can use my past now. I go into prisons, I go into schools, I see how much it helps people from all walks of life, not just people in prisons and schools. And I think that's quite an honour to be able to do that. The only issue I have with that answer I've just given is the fact that I hurt someone to get there. That's the bit where, of course, if I relive my life, that wouldn't happen, and then nothing else would happen. So it's kind of a catch-22. I would relive in my life again. I would not do what I did, but given what happened, I wouldn't change anything else.
If you could complete the sentence for me, anything is possible if
you put your mind to it. That's a bit cliche.
Maybe it's a cliche for a reason. So do you think it wasn't until present that you put your mind to anything?
I didn't know where to put my mind.
I guess like one final additional one for me then is there be one person you can point to as a real kind of inspiration for you? One person that you can go, do you know what? Without that person in my life, you know, things go differently.
Oh, that's impossible because there's so many. The obvious one that jumps to mind is Ian, who came in and gave me the job in the restaurant, because I think if I didn't work there, I think things could have worked out differently. I think I was at that level where I would have worked things out.
So maybe the guardian angel police officer?
Could be.
Do you think she saved his life?
I think so.
So I mean,
I get shivers when I think about that.
I hope that's an okay thing to ask.
No, of course, I've never shied away from a single question. I think yes, she did. I think where that wasn't exactly the busiest place. The fact she was even walking down there, I don't even know. That's what makes it weird, because all the sort of kebab shops and stuff, they're on this hill and they stop, and then where he collapses there, which was like a dark sort of driveway into a car park at that point, and then we were around the corner, which is people would only be there if they're walking home and that sort of thing. And this was at 1:30 in the morning, I think it was. So I don't even know why she was walking down there, and if she wasn't there, or even if she was 10 minutes later, maybe even less, I think very likely he would have died, and then we'd be talking a very different story. And then one of the things I noticed, they were talking I think it's always important to remember, I'm not just talking about, even though this happened 20 years ago, I'm not just talking about me, talking about him as well. And one thing that always shocked me at the time after was like, even if you had disagreements with people, and even if you wished someone harm, you forget that they have grandparents and parents and brothers and sisters, and that's something that gets me now. I often think about when something happens to someone, or I'm always like, oh, the family, which just never crossed my mind before that happened. It's sad that I had to go through that to get to that point, but then again, kind of going back to that question there, that's what shaped me into who I am and what I do today.
Nice. Well, thank you. I'm genuinely so grateful for you making the time, talking at length to me, because I didn't
realise that's gone by very quick. I didn't realise it was 3 hours. I thought I knew we were going on a lot, but
well, it's not as you've rightly said, it's not an easy story to tell being concise. And one reason that I do this is I've spent my whole entire PR career, the gold standard for a client was getting them on BBC Breakfast, or on This Morning, or insert on that couch for the 3 minutes that they're on there, trying to get all of these things and these thoughts and this life into a 3-minute interview. It's impossible. Yeah. You can't. There's just no way you can. And the only way you can do it is if you hit all the beats. I went to prison and did this, and and it's like, that's not you. That doesn't begin to scratch the surface of who you are. And the reason I do this is, the why we are who we are is so much more fascinating to me than the successes you have. Like, I'm chuffed for you. I know I said that before. You're only going to do, even better things. You're going to go on to incredible, you are, amazing things. But lots of the people I speak to are super successful, do amazing things. But the reason that we are those people, that's why I do this. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, I hope, that listen and watch. They go, do you know what? They'll see something in you and apply it to themselves, and some good can come from it. So I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you, man.
No, pleasure.
And we are back. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was a longer one. I know, Christ, it was quite a deep, open conversation. Jon was brilliant. He said, I'm an open book. I want to talk about these things, and I honestly think that it might be very, very powerful for some people listening or watching. And if that's you, then, good luck with whatever you're going through. And again, you can see there's light at the end of pretty much every tunnel. So look for it. Sometimes you've really got to look for it, but it's there. So thank you. I am very excited. Firstly, I should say thank you to Jon for his time. Really thoroughly enjoyed meeting him. And now I'm going to get you excited about the next episode, because it is... I'm not going to say who it is, But for many of you, you'll be surprised and will hopefully love this conversation. I might do some fun social media tease as to who it is. I think it's going to be pretty obvious quite quickly because this person is very recognizable. But a phenomenal episode coming next Monday. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Most people listen to podcasts or watching don't subscribe. If you like this, you'll get a notification next time. If you're on YouTube, click the bell. If you're listening on audio, just subscribe. And thank you very, very much. I appreciate the hell out of you. Cheers. Goodbye. Forever. Bye.